How do you do that?
He's got, Harry's doing it.
We are currently live streaming everybody, so you're aware.
Righto, really? We're live and that sort of thing. So obviously this is workshop 2 of the long-term plan 2737. So I'll hand it over to Nicole.
Thank you very
And
much.
Shay.
Welcome Mr Mayor and councillors. Again, following on from workshop 1, what we're doing is taking you on that journey of some of the other index items that are going to appear in your long-term plan from the 1st of July 2027. So again, it's a little bit of an educational journey that we will do more of a little deep dive into your performance measures, reminding everyone that we don't make any decisions in this meeting, in a workshop. We take your guidance and we will have some of the GMs and also hopefully those from the infrastructure department in Dan's absence to come and talk to some of the performance measures and where we might be sitting with some of indicating what sort of percentages for that next 3-year term. So quick recap of where we got to. I did an update of the booklet for you just so that you could see where some of the thoughts and guidance you gave us from workshop 1 landed, and therefore how that was now moving into some of the next conversation that we're having today. So we landed on core services, smart choices, future-proofing Waimate, and we proposed a vision statement with you, and that was delivering essential services that support thriving communities and a sustainable future. Now, anything you see in yellow going forward for all of these workshops, these are the comments, the advice, the guidelines that you gave us. They're not locked in. It does mean that you can tweak and play around with these later on down the track. So I'm trying to be very consistent in the delivery, that when you see something in yellow, that is still something that you can change going forward in the future, all right? So we got to previous LTP outcomes. The proposed LTP outcomes were community, people, environment, and infrastructure. So we slimmed down some of the comments. Then we also looked at your thriving community, came down to community, and a district where people can take part in decisions, a district that encourages growth and development, a district that promotes itself as a great place to live and work. And you've got a separate sheet in your papers that just identifies that list that I'm currently going through on the screen. At some point at your leisure in the future, please take another look at this. Send them back if you think that you've got any more comments. We don't have to deep dive into this now, but this is kind of giving the teams a bit of a focus when they start to do their activity statements. They're not locked in. They are still able to be adjusted or tweaked as we go forward. And again, that last group, we got to people, a district where people feel safe at home, working in public places, a district that values its culture and heritage, and a district that supports strong and connected communities. And the last group, environment, a district that grows in a way that looks after the environment community, a district that is resilient and adaptive, and a district that values its natural environment, biodiversity and landscapes. And the last one, infrastructure. And again, we're following with a district that supports, a district that provides, and a district that provides core. So again, all of these are speaking to your vision statement and speaking to your overall core services, smart choices, future proofing. So we're always going back to that statement and your vision for the future of this LTP.
Just a comment on that, Nicole,
yes.
And that relates to all of those ones we just had. And where we've got, everything's got a district,
Yeah.
and it's just a minor thing, but just it gets a bit, sort of repetitive.
Yeah.
Could we just have, like, say, under infrastructure, say, providing a district, and then that supports its communities, that provides reliable, something like that?
Absolutely.
So that we're not having that
So not having
district
repetition,
all the way down.
It sounds better.
Yeah,
Okay.
or just changing the start.
Yes. Yeah, so we can do that for you. So we'll actually link each of the three together as a sentence, one that builds on the next. So we'll change that. So the next time you see the booklet, the next time we do an update, we'll tweak that so that that's how it reads going forward.
Yeah, thank you.
We can do that
I think
for
it's
you.
great. It's got rid of all of the fluff.
Yeah, I really like it.
It's good.
It's much more meaningful.
Are you still comfortable with what you've landed on there in regards to some of your statements?
Yeah,
Okay.
looks good.
We'll keep going forward with those. As I said, we'll adjust and get rid of a district at the beginning. It just starts with that one, and then the three will link together.
Thank you.
So now we're going to have a conversation about key consultation items. Just to let you know that we do have one of the ladies as part of the group that do your resident survey, data collection and interpretation. Now they're going to come on at about 1:40, so what we might do is jump to her presentation and conversation, and then we can come back to whichever slide we got to. So apologies, we just didn't want them waiting. We didn't know what time, so we brought them in early. So if she comes in on stream, then we'll link to that. At this stage, key consultation items, we don't have to think what they are now, but what we're doing is saying it's time to start to consider them. As we go through the next 3, 4, 5 months, we've got possible changes on the horizon from central government. They're giving us an indication of simplifying local government rates, capping, all of these things that are going on, emergency management bills, etc. We're a little bit sort of got some objections to when and where all of this information is going to come out. It will have an effect on what you may think about as key consultation items, but as we go through the next 3, 4 months, as you get more key financial information that Tina starts to bring to the table when we get towards September and the activity statements come and we get some more of the strategies, you're going to get a feel for where you feel the next 3 years, the long-term plan, you focus on where you want the money to go, what you want to do, how you want to broaden the district, invest in core, etc. That will start to highlight some things that you want to have a discussion with the community with. So I'll leave it there for now. We'll just bring Alina Mead into the group. Hello Alina, are you there?
Yes.
Excellent.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And I'm just going to put you on the big screen for now. There we go. And please, Alina, introduce yourself and what you've been doing. And I'd like to introduce you to our Mayor, Craig Rowley, and our elected members around the table.
My name is Alina, for Q Research as the Senior Research Executive, and I usually manage all the questionnaires and all the weekend reports. I have prepared not the 2025 one, but I've been working on the 2023 and the previous one, and I have previously given the presentation about this report, so I've got quite a bit of background knowledge on Waimate DC.
So just introducing you to the team there, you saw the results of the survey. I linked that to the papers that you got this time, but also the presentation that Shay and I gave to you, where we actually added some spider graphs and we will begin to actually benchmark you from previous resident surveys to the latest one and then going forward. So if I bring your attention to those, are there any questions that you want to talk to Alina about, get some further information, understanding of what the resident survey is, before we do a bit of a deep dive into the performance measures a little bit later on?
No, everybody's happy?
You're all very happy?
Yep.
Okay. So, Alina, that was easy.
It was a very good year, to be honest. It was when I was looking especially at the benchmarking report and everything. I know some of the numbers might look a little bit low. However, when you look at comparison with the other councils and where Waimate DC sits at, the overall results are very positive.
Helena, could you maybe explain a little bit more about the other councils that we're being benchmarked against? Some of the differences, some are bigger, some are similar, just to talk through some of that and why these results were quite positive.
Yeah, so overall we had a total of 21 councils. Most of those are district councils as well, and most of those are comparable size to Waimate and the positioning as well. So the comparison is quite accurate. The data collection is the same for 99% of the councils, so we are taking the 400 sample size. It is all collected through postal to online in the similar manner. The overall, we're talking about like even overall satisfaction, the 59%. That's again, so that's the top performing council. For those results, the very satisfied and satisfied, the 7 to 10. Most of the measures are sitting either on average, above average, or close to the top. And the confidence level, just because we're comparing so many councils across the country, and we're talking about 18 district councils, that the margin of error and the confidence in the results is quite high. We only go in a couple % up and down. So that's where the confidence levels sit. There are some measures that for all of the councils, regardless to what's happening, it's usually the reputation and the value for money. Those measures are usually the lowest because the resident survey is based on perception rather than on the actual value. So we do expect those measures to be rated lower. For example, those people who have less interaction with the council or got less knowledge about what council does, what services it manages and how it manages them, because we do have, something that the district council cannot be responsible. Sometimes it's the regional council that is responsible for something. People do not usually realize that. The same with the rates and the rates increases. It always happens. So for people complaining about the rates, it is not something that people complain. And that's something that we expect. And that's something that happens across every single council. There is a consistency on the things. But when we speak about things like communication engagement and the information that council provides, that's where Waimate DC performs quite highly. And that's usually what turns the negative into the positive. So if you all have read the report, the most prevailing thing from the verbatim comments, what people say, is a third of those who left the comment, 30%, 29%, 30%. They're saying that, they're doing the best they can. So they are behind with the support, and it's supported across most of the measures throughout the report. It's the reputation benchmark, where it is sitting quite high and there is an improvement compared to last year. We see the improvement in overall satisfaction, we see the improvement in engagement and consultation. And I think this is the key focus on continue with the current approach of that communication that goes out from the council to the residents, that continues to keep the very high benchmark.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I just had a question. One of the things that's been put to me from a ratepayer was that of the number of surveys sent out, there was a very low reply. And I mean, Shay has assured us that it's a fair result. But what's your view on that?
So we sent 5,000 invitations, and that's regular. We usually expect the response rate in between 5% and 12%. So for Waimate, it was right in the middle, 8%. We also didn't use all of the responses, so the total number of responses collected was actually 423. But we do pick based on the demographics to make sure that there is no skew towards any particular age group or the word. We try to match it as close to census as we can. And that's what has happened in this instance. So we had a total of 423, that was 8%. And then we picked the 405.
Eleni, could you just confirm the accuracy of the information when you get only 8% return statistically, why that's actually still confidence in the outcome of that information? I think that's what you're asking, yeah.
So for us, we're looking for a margin of error that should be less than 6%. And if it's less than 6%, it's considered very statistically significant. So with Waimate, we are at 4.86, that's the margin of error. So we know that any result, if you ask any other person, if you ask any other group of people from the district, it would be within, like, let's say we've got 59% satisfaction. So that would fall within, what it would be, 63 at the highest, and then 55 at the lowest. So it is within that margin. And that margin is very, very solid, and it gives you a good confidence at representing what anyone in the district would say.
Just a question on that. Did you say before that you got so many surveys back but you didn't use all of them? Why would you not use all of them?
So from our perspective, we cannot, because the district has their representation by census, so we know what should be the proportion of 65 plus, what should be the proportion of particular word. So what we do is we try to make sure that that makeup is the best it can be. So we don't want, we do know from the experience and from the survey results, for example, that 65 plus, they do support because they understand more. They do support the council more, they give the higher ratings. So we don't want to have more than we need from that demographic group.
So
for example, we don't want to be age overrepresented. We don't want to be a specific word overrepresented, because it's the same like when we compare the words or the ethnicities. We do see that, some rate higher or lower than the other. And as we don't want the results to be too low, we don't want the results to be too high. We want the results to be clear and accurate. That's why when we have the total sample, we will look at particular words. So we look age, word, ethnicity, and gender. And then it's a blind. We don't know what the scores are. It's completely blind. And then we exclude to keep the 400, or to keep as many as we can, without the sample being skewed towards one of the demographics. We blindly exclude some people.
It is making quite a wide assumption, though, that just because you're over 65, you're going to think a certain way. Would that...
I think it's more, at least to say you don't get one demographic skewing the results.
Yeah.
So the likes of you went out and said, we're going to sample 400 people. The census information tells us the breakdown of that 400 is 20% in the 60 to 80 group, 18% and blah, 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 blah. So they go out and match what the census says. Otherwise, if you got all the high school, answer the questionnaires, the result would be completely skewed to the young person's point of view. It's not a consistent view across the whole.
Yeah, I do, I get that. I just feel like it's the other side of it too. It's like you're sort of lumping everybody into thinking the same way because they're a certain age or a certain demographic.
But they're blind drive. They don't look at the answers and say,
No, I realise that. But it's still saying that you and I, because we're...
Personally, don't know if those people that we excluded those people that were excluded, we don't know their scores.
No, I realise that.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's
But one of the crucial points that we actually don't know if they would have pushed the results up or down. It could go either way. But from our perspective, it is very important to make sure that that sample that we provide in the results, they are reflective of what anyone in the district would say overall.
So it's all based around, or it's predicated on the demographics you get from the census.
Yes.
So what are you going to do when they stop the census?
There are ways around it. So to be completely fair, for other companies, not councils, because we do have census right now. For other companies, we base it off the total sample. So for example, the way you provide us with the electoral roll to do the mail out, we can build our own profile of what we would expect to come out. So we would look at the electoral roll and build the proportions. Similar way, we do have the way of identifying not per se the age, but we've got the availability of, for example, if somebody says they're retired, we mark them as 65 plus. If somebody say they're a student, we do assume, but there are cases where they can be older. So if somebody marks they're a student, we assume they will be in the younger age group. And that's how we pick up who to mail out to. We also have the Maori roll versus the non-Maori, so we can clearly tell the ethnicity as well. The weighting and obviously their addresses, so we can identify the ward and the suburb as well. So there are ways around it. We will always find a way. If they stop the census ever, we will find another way. I can assure you that.
They are still doing a census, but they're doing it a different way.
Sorry, Rob said that.
Yeah, they're just
They're
doing
still doing a
with words.
census, but they're doing it a different way. They're not hitting every
And
sample.
the actual way, the way they want to continue with that, it is going to be more data, and it is going to be, we can dig into more demographic profile details if they link up all of the, like they wanted to do the IRDs with the health district boards and with everything else. It is a big step, but where the research goes.
It's just an observation, really. I've got some criticism from some ratepayers saying, well, okay, they've looked at the results of the survey and you've thrown out so many. So you're not listening to the ratepayers. And to a degree, I get that. But I mean, they've been thrown out so it reflects the demographics of, I get that. It's just hard when you're trying to reason with someone, yeah.
No telling how many were thrown out. So.
Yes, well, it was public.
I know. Right, we'll keep moving.
Well, yeah, so they're not only ratepayers who took part in the survey, obviously they're renters. And even though we do ask them that question about value for money, they are indirectly paying that as well. And they are using all of the facilities and they're using the roads and I understand what you're saying, but we've got to include the non-ratepayers into the sample to make sure, again, it represents the actual residents that do vote, they do pay rent, if not rates, and that are involved with all of the, the swimming pools. They still go to the parks, they still use the libraries, they still pay water, so they know, the water rates and things, like they still pay it directly. So it is the representation of who lives in the district and who uses the services and facilities.
Yeah.
And I think the other key thing is whatever has been going on with your neighbours or within your own council, 6 months up to that time that something drops into their letterbox as a survey, can also have an influence on how they respond. They won't look back over the last 2 years. They don't always look forward 2 years. They will actually think about the here and now and what has actually happened in the last 6 months. So that timing, we have to always be very aware of what's going on in the district and just in the atmosphere as a whole. I think, yeah, nodding to confirm that.
And it is why with most of the councils we are doing the quarterly data collection, because at one point in time, even though it is consistent for Waimate, so we always do it at the similar timings. But yeah, that's for example quarterly data collection that can avoid that something happened right now, because it is spread over the time, it is spread over the regular intervals. So let's say one quarter was bad because the new rates came out and people aren't happy, or there was some project that hasn't been completed. That's what we usually see. Or there was a big storm and it took a long time to clean up, so the roads were closed. So we know that if we do more data collection over time, that it evens it out. So we take out that factor, like you have mentioned, that, what happened 6 months ago is what all they're thinking about.
The other thing that can counter that, which is positive, when we do have a lot of those benchmark councils that we're being compared to, who do quarterly, even though we do that snapshot every 2 years and we still look at our number and we're still punching above our weight, where they're actually doing well and what they're following, because they've usually got quite a lot of KPIs attached to that, we can actually also pat ourselves on the back knowing that we're still there. So they, even though they're doing that testing, their results are a little bit of a giveaway to what's happening every quarter. So we're not that far off the mark, which is saves us having to do quarterly. We don't have to.
So the
And
question,
that's absolutely, yeah.
no, go, sorry, carry on.
It's just
I was just going to say, the questions that you, on the survey, are they consistent across all councils, or are they, does each council get a chance to say what they want to ask in those surveys?
So we've got the standard benchmarking questions, and then for each council, obviously they focus more or less, they've got slightly different LTP plan measures that have to be included. So yes and no. So each council still has a very strong say into what goes into the survey to make sure that it reflects everything that needs to be reported on. At the same time, we offer other measures to build that model where we calculate the impact of everything. So we do offer other questions that all councils in the benchmarking are asking to make sure that it's a holistic structure, that we're not missing out everything. So like, if you read the report, like for residents, we don't think that just the services and facilities are important. We also think what they think of the council in terms of the image and reputation, that's also important, because it's the perception. The other part that's very important, that's your value for money. Yes, though they are lower, yes, we know that those measures are going to be rated lower than the others. But we've got, when we ask like how overall you are satisfied with the council, we don't want people just to think, libraries and parks and roads. We also want to think about that engagement. We also want to think about the information. We also want to think about the inquiry handling. We want to think about like what they think, how much they pay, and the worth they get. And obviously, do they trust? What is the leadership? And those questions, they're not usually in the long-term plan measures, but those are the questions that we include to all of the council questionnaires that help us to have the overall better picture of where, if there is the breakdown, if the results are not what the council expected. So we actually have the answers to why and where.
Thank you.
So it's quite important that we don't change the resident survey questions because of that link to the other councils and that benchmarking, the quality of the information over time that you get, and you use your other performance measures that you have, that we do every quarter within council to maybe drill down in certain areas. So that's the beauty of adding a few extras, but keeping that resident survey stuff as is, asking those same questions every 2 years, and then benchmarking against those councils that are doing it every quarter, those exact same questions every quarter. So then we get a really good feel for how you're travelling right across everything that council does as whole operations. Yeah. All right, any further questions? Everybody happy with that? A little bit of a snapshot. Yep. Alina, thank you very, very much for attending the meeting, and we'll catch up with you again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Aye.
Bye.
Nope. Yeah. Okay, and we'll come back to the performance measures a little bit later on. So back to where we were, key consultation items, not something you have to come up with right now, but I think, as I've said, over the next 4 or 5 months, they will start to develop as things change, as you start to see more information coming out from the organisation via the budget info, via the activity statements that come from teams in regards to, and also from the community. What are they telling you? What do you think you're hearing from them? And what are the things that you, as a new council, want to see happen in that next 3 years? What are the areas that you want to concentrate on? And where do you want to spend some money? And those are usually the areas that you want to get a bit of a feel and a guidance. Mr. Mayor, anything from you in that area at the moment? Any thoughts from the floor?
Well, as you know, we've discussed it numerous times around the cultural heritage. You know, what was we need to get a guide from the community on, do they value their museums and their theatres, their art galleries and things like that? Because at the moment we're not treating them like we should be. You know, they need much better investment, or they need shut down. It's one way or the other. So for me, that's one of the key things, is that, you know, what does the community value, and are they prepared to pay for it, knowing the true costs? You know, you know, we're lucky that we have, you know, a fantastic theatre, but it's hanging in there by the skin of its teeth, basically. And I don't think we've got anything budgeted long term for, you know, what happens when the upgrades come, and so we need to clarify that. That's one of the things for me. And I guess the other one is that, you know, to keep rates down, there's only 2 ways to do it: spend more or earn more. So we need to either look at our spending and or attract more people to this district. And to me, the attract more people is a hell of a lot better than cutting down services. So what do we need to do to attract people to the district? And that comes down to district planning, to land use, to facilities, because we know that some of the key questions that people ask when they look at shifting here are, what's the education like? What's the doctors like? What are the facilities like? We're lucky that we've got, well, it's not lucky, we've worked hard to get good facilities with our event centre, with our swimming pool, with our parks and reserves, and we know that attracts people to this district. So we need to make sure that we're not cutting funding in those key areas that's going to have a detrimental effect on attracting people to come and live in the district. Yeah. So for me, that's probably the 2 biggest things, all while keeping it in the back of your head. We have to be affordable. We don't want rates going through the roof that it becomes a real burden for people to pay their rates. So it's a balancing act. So I'd like some guidance from the community around those sorts of things. And it's really easy to turn around and say, well, we'll just cut staff and cut services and we'll keep our rates up. I don't want to live in a town that gets hollowed out in 5 years because there's nothing here. And that's the risk. That's the risk of being mean, or being past frugal and into mean to try and keep rates down. But we've got a lot of vulnerable people in the community that we have to ensure are able to live here.
Is there anything else from maybe the new councillors around the table or those who've been here for a while that you feel are a follow-on from the LTP we're in, where we're going, how you're reading things for your communities?
I guess I've got just one, and I don't know if it comes into the, I don't think it would come into consultation, but I'd just like to understand what the barriers are for people who wish to build or develop here. If there are any, I'd just like to understand that a little bit better, because you sort of hear things in the community where they've had, you know, this hasn't gone well or this has been a bit hard and what have you, and I'd just like to know I'd just like to understand the process or the costs of it.
And that comes into that we want to attract people, be attractive for people to come here.
Yeah, I want to stop.
And I know anecdotally in the past, we have been well ahead of a lot of councils and neighbours and around the South Island.
Yeah.
But I'll say, oh, we'd much rather build in Waimate district than we would in wherever, Clutha or Queenstown, or because it's so much easier. And that's what we need to do, because we're all working to the same set of rules.
Yeah, so I guess that's the thing. You hear some people say that it's cost prohibitive, it's quite expensive to connect to this or to do this, and I don't know because I haven't done this, but is that normal? Is it the same everywhere else, or are we dearer, or are we better? I don't know, but I'd just like to know.
We get that information quite regularly from Dylan and his team when we're looking at when we go through our fees and charges.
Yeah.
They are benchmarked against our neighbours, a lot of them.
Okay.
And a lot of them, I know, particularly in the building area, they're nationally set fees that we have very little control over.
Okay.
And what a lot of people don't realise is that this council doesn't get all the building fees. A lot of it goes to other agencies. We just collect them.
Okay.
But we need to make sure that where we have influence, that we, you know, I want to have a district that's people go. I'm going to build in Waimate. It's so easy. It's, you know, they're really helpful. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that comes down to the likes of the staff that we've got. You know, they're very accommodating, and you're always going to get the occasional person where nothing went right.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, that's not necessarily anything to do with council.
Yeah. No, that's fine. It was just something I've heard, and I have no idea really about from that point of view, and I just wondered whether that was something that needed, I don't know, some clarification, but obviously. And
that will be part of the discussions as we move forward, particularly when it comes to doing the likes of our district plan review and things like that.
Yeah, that'll make a difference.
And we've spoken already about should there be a uniform charge across the whole of the urban area for building, you know, when it comes to water and sewage and that sort of thing, as opposed to a range of charges we've got at the moment, depending on where you're building and what's been done in the past. But you just got to remember that when you have those conversations, there will be winners and losers. As soon as you put a line in the sand, there's always someone on one side of the line and someone on the other.
Yeah, I think.
So when the activities come forward and when Tina starts to bring those budgets and, against all across the different departments, this is an opportunity for the likes of Dylan or others to do little mini workshops within and to talk to you about that. What is the value for money of building here and go through some of that basics, and that will help form some of your key considerations. You may decide, actually, no, we don't feel like we need to consult on this. Actually, I know. So use these LTP workshops to educate yourself in these areas. You know, ask if you want to hear something or you want to hear from any of the teams on particular subjects like this, then feed it through and we'll come here to these workshops and we'll talk you through it. That's the whole purpose of these.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Anything else before we move on to so that's just landing where we're heading with key consultation items. I'm pretty sure over time things will start to appear and you'll start to galvanise just your 3 or 4. You don't have to have a whole list of them. You don't have to have it, so you can go with 2, you can go with 3, you can go with 4. You'll decide as we get near the time. All right. Also, a quick roundup on assumptions and risks. So again, you will have seen as part of your attachments, this is in your previous LTP. There's an awful lot of information here. It's something that will come through again from Tina, and the rest of the team will feed into this, but it's also, you know, what are the risks of where you're spending your money? What are your population changes, it says there. What are the things that are affecting inflation, interest rates, legislative changes? All of these things create risks within the organisation, and how Stuart guides the rest of us forward and producing the things that you want to see happen in your long-term plan. We're here to come back to you and say, yeah, we think we can pull that off. Yes, we can do that here. No, affordability-wise, you're going to lose some of your service in this area. So this is what you're going to hear from us as we go through. And your assumptions and risks are quite a major part of that long-term plan. You're actually alerting the public to your levels of service, your affordability, and your timing and your cost of measure. It's all that balancing act of what we can do in the time with the money you've got and where you want to land with the rates, what's affordable. Are there any questions around your assumptions and risks for now? But we'll come back to this. It's a pretty meaty subject.
I think it just needs to be one of them for global instability.
Yep. Yep.
I was going to put a bit more point the Trump effect, but the global instability is a bit better.
Just wanted to add that basically the assumptions inform the financials.
Yeah.
So it's important to have full transparency over those assumptions that have been made for them and how they impact the numbers that come out. So for that very reason, assumptions are not something we want to revisit a number of times. So as given the volatility of various aspects of the world, then yeah, we will be trying to do that as late as possible in the process to alleviate having to revisit it, because it does impact your financial modelling. Yeah. So it can have create a lot of extra work if it's revisited often, and then the rating of the confidence level will be another aspect that is important to consider. Just how risky each assumption is and the potential impacts of them. And it's certainly not just me, there's plenty of other non-financial assumptions that also have an impact on the plan as a whole.
So this is just a first introduction. As Tina's just noted, it's a pretty meaty subject. It is something that's a bit of a roundup once you've had a feel for where you want to go in the direction, and as Tina has noted, her and her team sometimes don't have the time when we get towards the end to go back several times and do report after report, running numbers through to give you lots and lots of options.
It's not efficient. We're a small council, small teams, and I'm happy to
That's what costs us money.
stand by that statement that that's something we can ill afford.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on that basis, that assumptions part of it, because it does dictate your financial modelling, you're talking post-elections, sort of
Yeah, so
like once you know where the legislative climate sits.
yeah, some of the key assumptions like inflation usually not available till October, which is literally election time, right? So it could be that they make a call to, give us an indication of the date. It could be early November. Not sure yet. That's
I think a lot of the stuff's covered off separately in our risk register.
Yes.
And that rather than an LTP document, we've got a risk register, and probably that global instability is more fitted for there than, because I know this has what Tina's talking about, these are the assumptions that are used to generate the figures for the dollar terms and things like that.
And some other aspects that are non-financial,
So
weather events and the frequency of them. There's one that could have some financial considerations, but not only financial.
I kind of get what you mean with timing, because there's so much flux at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not something you want to, there's like way too much water to go under the bridge before you can.
Yes.
I'm also a firm believer in the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And that, so it's very easy to add these bits and pieces in, and the document goes
Yeah.
We want the assumptions to be realistic.
Yeah.
They should be, and they're based on something tangible. But in order to get the best quality information, pick your timing and read the room with what's happening.
You're quite happy with what's in there at the moment?
No, because that was 2 years ago.
So you don't want them like that?
Oh,
So
yeah.
no, you could almost start with a blank page, and there will be some that will be of similar content but different numbers.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
And
this
there
was-
could be some that we
Yeah.
don't retain as an organisation.
Yeah.
We're comfortable that it's not significant enough because these are significant forecasting assumptions, as opposed to not every little thing that we might be saying, oh, we're just going to roll with the assumption that this plays out in this way. It's only significant ones.
Yep.
Yes, there could be some to be introduced that are not there now.
It's
Based on
very
2 years ago.
interesting process.
So workshops do continue right the way through to the end of this year, Christmas, and and if we have to, 1 or 2 in January, February, and this is where there will be a big deep dive into this section in a workshop where we'll bring it back to you, give you a heads up it's coming, and then talk you through that whole process and develop it. So, as I said, we're educating you at this stage of what's coming, and there's a certain point where we can't rush the process because we don't have the information, and it sort of suddenly all comes on the run up to Christmas. You're going to get an awful lot of information come at you, and in that first January, and then we've got to be ready for audit. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do. We're just warming up at the minute. Sorry, folks. Okay. So performance measures, and we've got some of the team sitting here. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking some time out of your day today. Quick recap on where we were at. We mentioned about measuring what matters, that the measures are a link back to your strategic direction, and that's that focusing on core services, smart choices, future proofing, and that comment that we made then also about having a strategic vision. We recommend you don't change the resident survey-based performance measures. We can't tell you not to. We recommend you don't, and those are the ones that are going against your 21 other councils. We cannot change the mandatory measures, so that's Rob over there in the roading, that's NZTA that do that. But we can adapt the remaining existing measures or introduce new ones specifically to target areas of interest or change. So what we've tried to do to make it easy for you is in your performance measures table, because this is what we're going to spend a bit of time on now. Anything that you see in that yellow is what you can influence and change. Everything else is locked in, and we want to talk you through all those areas which are setting some of the numbers, and then where we're thinking that there could be a new measure because there's something that's popped up and we feel it's not giving you enough information. And actually a couple of things popped out this morning during some of the earlier conversations, and I wrote them down, and I might just bring them to the table. So what I want to do at this point is hand over to Shay, because he's going to lead us through some of these, and he's going to put some numbers down, and then we've got the various teams as we go through the sections. Are there any questions before we dive into these performance measures at this point, or shall we just get into them for you? All good? All right. So, remembering that we will not have water in these performance measures. They will come to you separately to this as part of a water strategy, their own little mini LTP, and they will come and talk to you again. Some of those are already set for them. There'll be mandatory measures that they have to follow, and then as a water committee, they may set some of their own little measures that they want to see what the team are doing. So we'll leave that out of the way for this stage. So the first one will be waste management. And I don't know if we've got anybody in the room. No, we haven't at this stage. I actually just brought up this morning when we were talking, and there were some great pieces of information that came out of the waste management report update. And we'd actually already noticed about this reduced cost in the organics and the plastics. and that there may be, there's an opportunity, should you choose to, when we get down to it, to introduce something, and we can go back to the team if the wording's not there, or if you agree and get them to come up with something around watching your organics material, your plastics, and your heavyweight stuff that's costing you money, whether that's an education, and it sounds as if the team are doing that, but do you want to measure that in a light way, just so it's a touch every quarter? Okay, so starting at the top, handing to Shay, do you want to start to talk us through?
Sure, I think the best way to do this is just bite by bite, and we'll go through each performance measure.
Yep.
What I will say is that I spoke to Dan before he left. He's not here to defend himself, but he did say that there is a kind of 2 levels to doing performance measure reviews, just particularly for assets, because later on in the year you will be going through asset management plan development, and that will speak to these to a degree. There is also a budgeting element that once those budgets are more concrete, you'll have an idea of where spending will be, where spending may be reduced, and how that may affect your targets in the future. So again, this is a workshop. Nothing is going to be set in concrete, but you may see these again. Feel free to give us questions to take back to Dan and the assets team if you require more information, but we've done our best to give you just some basic recommendations that we can take back to the teams and further this discussion. So we'll start right at the beginning. The resident survey, residents receiving the service are satisfied with waste management services. So I've given you the year 1 target LTP. That's what we currently have in our LTP. Next to that, we have our result from the 25 survey. Far over on the right, you will see the national benchmark average, if there is one, and this will be standard across all the documents we're about to look at. So the question is we've kind of recommended that we keep that target at 77%. Do you agree with that?
Can I ask why we have 77% as opposed to say 75%? Why it's
improvement. Anytime that we change a level, a proposed target, it may or may not be looked at by audit as an intended level of service change. And when you adjust a target significantly, they'll ask you, okay, well, is this a level of service change? And you need to justify that to a degree financially. So we try to avoid minor movements. We have an opportunity with what we're doing right now, because I think in the past we've kind of used our performance measures to be a little bit ambitious in saying this is where we'd like to be, but it has been a bit decoupled with, at times, what we've been doing. And so we have an opportunity to hit reset and talk to audit when they say, okay, well, why have you changed these numbers? We can say, look, we are kind of readjusting how we look at these performance measures. We were a little ambitious in the past based on the trend from the last 3 surveys. We think it's appropriate to set our target here, and we're going to move with that as our justification for that target. So,
and I think that's important. I think it's important we do that, Shay, because some of those targets that we had were very aspirational.
Absolutely.
And realistically never going to be achievable.
No.
You know, like when we see the national averages and of which just about everyone, or I think everyone, we're well above.
Oh yeah, well, some of them you'll see we have our expectation of ourselves is quite high, and even though the national average is significantly lower, we're still a top performer, but we're nowhere near that intended target. So there's a good opportunity for you to look at the actuals and what we'd intended for ourselves, and to say, are we being ambitious? What do we intend to do with the activity over the next 3 years, and why would that number move from where it is now?
I guess part of that conversation is, are we prepared to, like, if we're way out from where our ambitious target is, are we actually going to invest in creating change to get that to where it needs to be? Or is that an unrealistic target?
Yeah.
Like, because, and that comes back to that level of service thing. So if we're 20% below a target consistently, what is it gonna take us to get to gain that 20%? Can we afford to do that? And is that actually our intention? Because if it's not our intention, why are we?
And remember that we only do our community survey, our survey results every 2 years.
Yeah.
So there is a gap sometimes. We report twice on the same number. And for example, I'm going to talk to library services because it's a good example. We did a major library renovation, but it got caught in a year that we didn't do a survey. So all we saw was, okay, well, the library's done and it's been a 3-month gap, but we saw a decrease in the perception of the library. Well, that was likely because it was at the event center, it was a pocket library, it was just to maintain services. But in looking at what we have this year, you'd say we did a major library renovation, we put a lot of money into it, we're really happy with it, we've seen numbers go up. I imagine the library team can talk to those changes. We do expect that we will set the target higher based on that information.
Yeah, because the investment has changed.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I think we've got to be careful we don't penalise ourselves.
Yeah.
That sort of thing by having an aspirational target that we have no intention of. Any target can be met with enough funding.
That's kind of my point, that
But,
unless we're prepared to
you know,
put money in
yeah.
to meet a target,
That's right.
why are we trying to set ourselves up to
Yeah.
permanently fail?
And why are we setting a target that's at 85 when the national average is 60, and we're spending a whole heap of money to achieve that additional 25%, and for what benefit? It just doesn't add up. So we need to recognise that we're still outperforming a lot of councils in most areas, but I think that it's always good to have a target that's just not out of reach, but just an improvement each time.
Yes.
I don't want to see us dropping targets down to 5% above the national average and then saying what a wonderful job we're doing.
No, well, that's the.
And we would get challenged by audit on that.
Yeah.
So we do have to keep ourselves honest.
But there is some here that I honestly think we're very aspirational at the time, and that unless we're prepared to put the money in to lift the level of service around those aspirational targets, we're never going to reach them, and we're only penalising ourselves by doing it.
I agree. Yeah. So and we have subject matter experts here to speak to some of the more complex subjects. So do you have questions for them?
So I don't know. I'd be interested to hear your thinking. Is what I'm saying out of line, or
not at all.
somewhere near where it should be, or
from a Parks and Reserves perspective, that some of that obviously doesn't apply to us because our benchmarks are not set higher than we would expect to achieve. There are some other aspects I'd like to talk to with Parks and Reserves around how we measure, because particularly Parks and Reserves is a challenging environment to measure, considering we're operating for the top 2 inches of most people, not the potholes in the road or burst water mains. So it's a challenging area, but our particular measures are achievable currently, and we are achieving them.
So if we come back to the water, waste rather. So though you've got a benchmark national average at 65, you set a previous target at 77, and this is in the resident survey, and you're achieving 75, though there's a little bit of commentary that came back around your organics and your plastics, and that's actually shown up in that report that came to you, council, this morning. So when we say keep at 77, you've still got a stretch there. You're 75, and we feel you've got stretch there if you start to focus a little bit on that, reducing your organics and some of your plastics and that waste. You're not expending any more money. In fact, if anything, you could be saving money, and your residents are really enjoying that level of service they're getting. The rubbish is being taken away, your streets are nice and clean and tidy, they haven't got any issues there, you would have heard about it. So I feel you've hit the sweet spot there, you've got a little bit of stretch, and there's a couple of things there that you can work on. So hence the advice there to maybe go with a 77. We've got maintain existing target for your receptacles for your curbside, and you've seen actually some good results again this morning. Reduction in your waste generation, curbside material, we've got measures are appropriate, and I think again your the updates that you got this morning are actually signaling that. So how do you feel about the target recommendations? Is there anything there you feel you want to change? Are you happy with those? And would you like to introduce a quarterly that maybe just watches what's happening? And it could be targeted at education to just watch where those percentage numbers come down for organic material plastics.
Yeah, I think based on the SWOT data, there's work that, achievable work that could potentially be done there, education wise. Apart from that, I think these targets are.
Everybody feel you're comfortable with that?
I agree, yeah.
So I'll tick all of those, and what I'll do is talk to Dan around what would be something that they could measure educationally wise. It might be that information's going out each month, notices are going on bins, just 4 or 5 things that they could do once every quarter that just maybe, and let's see if we shift that dial on reducing your organics from
it's finding ways to do that effectively and affordably without placing additional burden on the towns.
Well, the other thing too is that we've got the waste management levy, which we can use for this type of education.
Great, then I feel less bad.
And that sort of thing.
In place.
And we all know that if you want to get waste under control, you go to the schools.
Yeah.
Start with the kids.
Yeah.
Because the kids will put pressure on mum and dad, as we went through with the old seatbelt campaigns.
That was the biggest thing that stood out to me from the swap audit, is we've still got room to improve.
I'd just like a little bit of explanation around the non-compliant. And I see there was a note in here that said that obviously Dan and Ed are not with us today, so team to explain or suggest an alternative target or measure for the compliance with source consent conditions.
Yeah.
And I've got a sneaking suspicion that may be around monitoring of old landfills or something like that. I don't know, but if we could have a little bit of a comment at some stage as to what the alternative measure may be.
Yep. Okay, comfortable with that? Okay, Rob's chance to shine. Roading and footpaths. So again, we've got some resident survey stuff there, we've got some mandatory ones, and then we have some that you can have a play around with. And again, popped up this morning just as something that I noted, that you had a conversation around the contract for the next 2 years, that vegetation control and your culvert clearing, etc. So that could be something that Rob could talk to you about. There may be something there that you want to watch every quarter and see some of that come down, or a slightly better performance in the contract. Other than that, I'll hand to Rob and you can talk everybody through.
Just a wee comment, it probably costs us for our simple performance measures about 10 to 15,000 each. So every time you add a new one in, especially something like surveying culverts, it will cost us 10, 15, 20,000.
So I'm not
just to do paperwork.
So I'm not necessarily suggesting that you survey the culverts, but as you're watching the contract and you've noted that you want a lift, is this something that staff are doing?
No, but to pass out audit, we've got simple one with reseal, it just takes forever to satisfy the requirements, so it's got to be bulk proof. So if we say we're going to survey something, we get tested on that to the end for the group. On some of our performance measures, and we've had a lot of issues about roughness, that they've looked at every even though the traffic has got a minor effect on the roughness measure, they looked at every traffic count that we did for the whole year. And so we've just got to be mindful that of the complexity of measuring it and the time it takes for what it's worth.
So the measures that are currently in place, do you believe are sufficient to give you the information that you need to report? Is there any big holes in these performance measures that you go, oh, we really should be doing this, or we shouldn't be doing this?
Well, it's really what the council feels they need to measure the performance, and the information is a bit limited in what we do now, but we could do some specific things that are a real issue, but just bear in mind that we don't do them from, it drives more expenditure, potentially. Either one is that we invest more in that topic to meet the target, and two is the time it takes to measure it. And
I've looked at a few other councils and some have spent a lot of time on this. It depends on where we're getting the issues. And the basic one is the quality of ride on unsealed roads. We've got, that happens. The survey for that is done independently now. So it doesn't cost us, apart from doing the old traffic count, and that's sort of backed off testing that. So that one is like finished, well, it happens. And we've got a report on our percentage resealed. And that's fairly straightforward, but it still takes quite a bit of time to get all the figures right. So we've got to prove that to quite a small tolerance, the area is sealed. And we don't get quite an accurate figure from our contractor at the moment. So there's a lot of time measuring roads and measuring widths and lengths just to prove that what we're saying is right.
Shouldn't the onus be on them to do that if they're doing the work?
What's that?
Shouldn't the onus be on the contractor to prove that they're doing it right if they're doing the work?
There's some technical issues with the current contractor in doing it. You know, they provide it and we've got to check it. It's on to us to make sure
They're doing
that
the right
what
work.
they, you know, they give us, and I've just got the figure today, it's a bit different, I think, than what we think it is. So it's on the council to verify it.
Right.
Because they can't play in ref, can they?
What's that?
They can't play in referee, can they?
No, well, they tell us they've resealed X.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure that that's
It's got to
right.
be verified.
And in the past, we've had computer printouts that verify it, but we challenged them last year. They weren't quite right. So we've gone back to measuring roads. So, you know, we've got to do that because we're paying them quite a bit of money for research, so we don't want to over or under pay them. So that's got two purposes. You know, one is that we're paying the right amount, and two is we use that as a performance measure. And so we used to have one for the amount of gravel put on the road in a year. We've never been challenged to test that. But it's not there for the last 3 years. It got taken out. It's fairly straightforward to do, but the same thing, you know,
Someone's got to go
we
check
could be
it.
challenged on proving it, because we don't go and test, measure or weigh trucks. So we take the contractor's word for the amount they put on a truck, and we have had issues in the past. So, you know, we could add that in. I don't think it's too risky, but, you know, someone could say, well, how do you know that a truckload is 7 metres?
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
still
right.
relying on goodwill and.
Yeah, well, we are, but we can be challenged on that. So we could say, okay, we've got to sample so many trucks to prove it. So everything we do with the performance
That comes
measure
with
is
cost.
Reaction has a reaction.
Yeah, so it's just, if the information is useful, it's good, but
Yeah.
it's just how much use it is.
I think that's the biggest thing.
I was just going to say, sorry, no, you do your question, because I was going to say to Rob, start at the top and let's work our way down each of these that are here, and then maybe we'll leave it.
Tina's got a general
One
comment.
observation
Yep.
that all of these performance measures in roading, bar one, are mandatory or resident survey. So if you've already concluded that you're retaining your resident survey questions, I'm not
Nothing's to
sure.
change.
Not sure that there's too much you've got to work with unless there's a suggestion from Rob or yourselves to
Yeah.
introduce additional.
It's just your percentage level, that's the other thing we're talking about. Anything in yellow?
And I think the biggest thing for me is, how do you use this data? Do you use this data to change how we deliver a service? Like, how does this data impact the way that you guys deliver on the ground? Or is this a compliance measure for us?
Yeah.
With our LTPs?
Mandatory, you've got no choice.
Yeah.
I'd say if we were concerned about roughness data being growing, we would suggest that we invest in more pavement rebuilds.
Yep, okay, cool. So
Okay,
it's just
we-
for me, I'm just trying to link it
that's
to
helpful.
how.
The percentage of reseal is sort of an asset management plan tool, we sort of would calculate anyway, so that's sort of useful. But there is a lot of other measurements and analysis of our network through Transport Insights that we use, so this is just the top end.
It's, I think for me, I'm just trying to get it to a point where we are measuring what we need to measure, but that it has a practical purpose and that we're not just measuring stuff for the sake of measuring stuff.
We are, but
As,
you have
as,
to.
as Tina said, 99% of these are mandatory, so we don't
Yeah.
have an ability to change them. What it comes down to is when we come to the resident survey satisfaction levels, we have a percentage in there that we set that we do have an ability to change.
Yeah.
So,
On the first item there, we're achieving 42% on sealed roads. Why would you want to only achieve 40%? I don't think we should be going backwards.
So I mean, that's the conversation about, your national average is at 35. We had a target set at 50. Yes, we're aiming for 42. There may be a particular reason why you've got to 42. Maybe you've spent a lot of money in this last LTP on your roads, and maybe this is a big ticket item coming up in your next LTP. Are you going to be, again, this is where Rob gets to be able to give you an indication of what's going on.
Just a comment I'd make, because you only survey every 2 years, our figures is what happens on the road in the last month, 2 months.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter like we're spending $1 million on paper rebuilds this year, time you do the next survey, people probably forgotten about it.
Yeah. And
only the people in the Parry ward are actually seeing that big expenditure at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have to measure every few months to get a good figure. And Timaru were doing that.
I was going to say, Timaru were doing that, weren't they?
Yeah, and it did give them good information to improve your roads. I think they've backed off it now. But your roads are only as good, especially unsealed roads, to the last heavy rain and the last missed grade. So when people ring you up and say, what do you think of the unsealed roads? Some people just want them sealed, so they say they're no good. Some people think about the potholes that they are driving through at the moment.
And the other ones have just had the grader go past and said they're great.
And the grader's made a good job. So it's a good measure, but doing it every 2 years is, you can only use it to the minimum extent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would have just thought 42%.
42?
So speaking to what you were saying, yeah, exactly about that disconnect, is that the target recommendation doesn't necessarily be where we want to be. It's more of an indicator of what we consider to be an acceptable level of service, and anything above that is a win.
One thing,
yes,
in our asset management plan, we've plotted dissatisfaction rather than we've plotted the other way. And new surveys that we've done, 2 of, I think, have a neutral bit in the middle, and our previous original surveys didn't. So we used to rank about 60% for our roads. So you either liked them or you didn't. You couldn't sit on the fence. Now you can in the survey. So there's a big piece of people being surveyed just don't have an opinion. So it's not that 60% of people don't like the roads. And so we've plotted up over time the dissatisfaction. And that's slowly getting less. But that's a good measure. It's another way of looking at it. And we can report on that. It doesn't have to be the reported to the public performance measure, but that's a good way of monitoring what's happening. And usually people, if they're dissatisfied, will tell you.
Yeah. And this is the exact sort of thing that we've spoken to Stuart about, saying that we were really keen to have the likes of you instead regularly reporting back to council meetings with that sort of information that's more informal and that sort of thing. I agree to somewhat extent with Peter what he's saying here. I'd be much happier to see them both at 45 and that sort of. So I think we should always be aiming to just do a little bit better and that sort of thing.
Or even 42, because when someone looks at this from the outside and they say, well, the roads are okay, and now next time we expect they'll be worse.
Yeah.
Dropping below the result you have currently.
So that first one, 42 or 45? 42?
Well, we achieved 42. I would like to think that we can improve. So I think
so that means that I need to, when I've got this differential service for AMP, so I should be putting some effort in to do that. So that means I will, we've got to do some options that we'll be recommending a slightly improved.
So what were you doing when it was at 50?
Well, we've got to say, hey, can we do things better? And certainly for unsealed roads we can.
Yeah.
But that costs more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can tighten up on the grading and we can do some more metal and that will help and continue with the drainage, probably the drainage, but we can't keep at the current budget levels doing that. So if we wanted a wee bit more, we need to sort of focus or suspend in that area.
What I'm saying though is we're not actually asking for anything more, we're actually dropping it.
Yeah,
Because the
target's
current level
50.
that we have is at 50%.
But that's the target, sorry.
The target,
The
sorry.
result was
The
42.
result was 42.
So
and
where do
that's
you want
like-
to land as a comfortable, are you
Because
still well above?
residents' satisfaction is a very fickle thing, right? I mean, and you can't measure it and you can't do anything to make it hit a certain level. But I just think, you know, optically, when you look at that, dropping what we had last time by 2%, looks bad, right? It looks like we've cut back on the service.
I think that goes back to Shay's point though, is like this is around us deciding what is an acceptable
But it wouldn't want to be less than what we're
Yeah.
achieving currently, I don't think.
So would we look?
I think,
we're
I think
basing
it
it-
depends, because Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but some of these do rely on NZTA subsidized budgets.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
So the GPS on 2024 talked about wanting to focus on sealing activities, correct? And they took a bunch of money out of programs for footpaths.
Yes.
So we are operating under a budget constraint that footpaths are likely going to deteriorate because we're not getting subsidized money on those. So there are times where we need to readjust these with, it's not our intention, we are having our hand forced by the subsidization scheme.
Yeah, I'm sort of getting that, but with things that are measurable, that's fine, right? But community satisfaction is absolutely fickle, right? You never go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the question there is, you know, is setting ourselves 5% above the benchmark average a good level of service that we intend to
I'm only
continue?
asking 2%.
Just a little bit of context. I believe the best response from all the benchmark councils for roading was only 45%.
We were at
So the window for satisfaction is very, very small, and we're actually quite high in it. But if we start saying, well, we expect 45%, in context of that window, that's a big jump. And we get diminishing returns on how much money we're spending on that, because like what you're saying, the public has its own opinion of the roads, contrary to what's being done or not. A lot of resident satisfaction with roads is influenced by national narratives that we have very little control over. If the news says the road's bad, people tend to have the idea that the roads are bad, whether they are or not.
So are we comfortable to hold at 42? Do we
One
feel-
off if there's. good
40,
reason for leaving it.
45 is going to take us to the top of the.
You know, but if there's good reason for leaving it at 40, I'm happy at 40, I just.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I
Just-
understand where you're coming, I totally
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from. But also, know that if we expect an increase, we're gonna be prepared to pay for it.
Yeah, that's.
Trouble is, you ask ratepayers to, oh, we want better roads, oh, well, we'll put the rates up. And then you get into a massive fight.
But I think that what I get disappointed about is that what Rob's telling me is that figure's not correct. As we're measuring, you know, because we're only doing this survey once every 2, and roads must be notoriously terrible to try and get an accurate level of service on. I'd be very, very interested to see your data around the dissatisfaction level and that sort of thing, because anecdotally, like I've spoken to a lot of people that have said to me that the contractor's doing a much better job. And we are more satisfied with the shingle roads and that sort of stuff.
Should we change the residents' dissatisfaction rather than satisfaction?
We can't change
We
that.
can't
change
It's the benchmark.
No, it's benchmarked against all the other councils, you see. So I think we've just got to take that additional information that Rob's going to give us and weigh it up against this.
Yeah, and I think
I'm not going to die in the ditch between 40 and 42.
Yeah, if the best in the country is 45, and we know to get there, that would require a bigger investment that we're not able to deliver.
Or better timing of works.
But I think the other thing too is we just need to be ready to justify it, because we will get questioned about why you're dropping that.
Yeah. So let's hold. I think if we hold for now, again, you know, this is something we're being guided in another couple of months when more information
Shouldn't say
comes
this
in.
is not set in concrete at the moment.
No, so
Yeah.
if we go for a guide of 42,
If the recommendation,
hold. Yep. Then we've got the residents' satisfaction with unsealed roads, and again, you had a target of 50%, you had a result at 38, the national average is 28. So we're suggesting again with Rob there that you hold at that 38, which is a pretty high number.
Yeah.
Yep. Rob, are you comfortable with that? Yep. The
What figure was
38,
that?
holding that
Yeah,
percentage?
yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool, we'll go with that. Average quality of ride on sealed roads, again, you know, argue as long as you like about what might come out here, but you're at 93%. Consider 92% to ageing pavements and no major seal maintenance expenditure. Rob, do you want to talk to that a wee bit?
For the,
That third one.
Roads wearing out,
Average
they're getting
quality of
rougher.
ride on sealed roads.
I think it's splitting hairs over 1%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I see the here nor there.
92?
Yep.
Percentage?
we're not investing a lot in smoothing roads, and they're going to progressively get a bit rougher till we renew them for such a length, and especially urban roads with trench openings.
Yeah.
So roads will be rougher because of trenching.
Yeah.
So I think we can probably hold it at 93. It'd be interesting. It takes a fair bit to change it, but it has dropped 1.5% in 5-6 in about 7 years, so it's slowly
getting better.
And we will, you know, we can do isolated levelling, so we are endeavouring to fix a wee bit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, so we'll hold it 93.
That's a pretty good result, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'll say.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that.
No national average for that.
No, it's not a benchmarked question.
Percentage of customer service requests relating to roads and footpaths responded to within 10 working days. Again, I think that one, you had a target of 95, you were at 100%.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah,
All right.
older than that.
Change from the previous year in the number of fatalities, we don't have a lot of say over
I
this.
was going to say it's always bugs
Bugs me that one.
Always bugs me this one.
Zero.
Does that include state highways?
No,
No, just on local roads.
Local roads.
There's not a lot you can do about that one, it's
it is a useful measure. It should be more averaged, but we've been fortunate. We haven't had too much.
And you get slammed on the media if you turn around and say
Last
we're accepting 2 fatalities a year.
Yeah.
so we'll put a note to hold there. Resident survey, resident satisfaction with footpaths. Again, Rob, I'll throw this one to you. We've got to adjust the target to 45.
Yeah, I think if we stay at that average,
Yeah, 47.
we are still investing in footpaths, so hopefully we get a bit more satisfaction on them.
So stay at 47, that's what we achieved.
So that's hold at 47,
That's
but
hold,
that's
or do you
dropping
want
from
to?
58.
Your 58 is your target,
Current target.
47 was the reached one.
Yes.
So I think
47 is the
if we
national
can keep
average.
them at 47, we'll be doing pretty good.
Okay.
And that assumes a wee bit less investment.
Your percentage of footpaths that fall within a condition rating of, now 85 was your target, you reached 90.
Yeah,
So again, I would say hold that. Compliance with footpath prioritisation model, no more than 7k non-compliant, you're at 3k. So again, you had your, do you want to suggest any alternative?
No,
Are
I've
you
suggested we
comfortable
take
with
that one out because it's a bit meaningless now. We can make it work, it's easy to do. But basically we had an idealistic program of putting footpaths in, and we've done the ones that we needed to do, so it needs rethought. And so we've met our target, so it's not actually measuring anything useful, unless council, you know,
It's obviously not mandatory.
that? No, you can,
It's
you
not
can
mandatory,
remove
it
this one.
was a good, it drove to do like the King Street, Princess Street footpaths.
Oh,
yeah.
But then we've got lots of Gorge Road footpaths both sides, which I don't think is necessary. So the sort of logic needs rethinking about future footpaths.
Yeah.
And I think we've sort of done the critical ones.
As subdivisions are developed, is it part of the like new subdivisions, if we're expanding that town boundary kind of thing, is it part of that subdivision that the
No,
footpaths are developed as part of that?
There is a contribution sometimes, but there's no real plan to develop footpaths.
Right.
And so really to drive something, we need to invest in a footpath strategy, and especially for recreational type footpaths, rather than the footpaths just serving the residents, we need to think about sort of potential recreational ones. That's where we get a few requests, like putting loops around Bakers Road and things, which are more for people doing longer walks.
Yeah.
And we have invested in a bit of that, but so this measure here is more servicing houses.
Yep.
And depending on the subdivision, it is quite difficult when we get the contribution or not.
That's a conversation we have to have when we look at the district plan.
Yeah,
That's where that comes in.
because that's like, for this to then go back over the 7K, it would mean that there would be new development that all of a sudden we didn't have footpaths for. So,
And then
unlikely.
that has a downside to the viability of subdivision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get feedback, hey, we want to do a subdivision, get more houses, but we've got to spend a lot of money on footpaths, which is a disincentive on one hand.
Yeah.
So do we want to remove it? Do we want to keep
I'd
it? Do we want to
remove it.
tweak it?
It's not meaningful any longer.
Okay. And then the last one there, percentage of sealed local road network that is resurfaced, and you talked about that, Rob, a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
We've got to hold the target.
Yeah, just hold that. Yeah.
So I think we can hold that ceiling. It is reasonably modest. This year we've done 6.8%.
Okay.
But we've taken advantage of the lowest bitumen prices that we did have.
I was going to say,
So
might need 6.8%, next year it might be 3.
Yeah.
So we might struggle to do 5% next year.
Yeah.
We don't know what, but that's one.
You got a good
We're
reason.
sort of caught up, so that's one item I'm looking at. If we do get pressure on our budgets, that's one item that we can reduce the amount of reseals and save quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one we'll be looking at first.
Yeah.
But this is actually this current annual plan year, so it doesn't affect the long-term plan at the moment. But the 5% is scaling back our reseals a bit. So traditionally, we're doing 5.8-ish. And with the lower volumes, we're getting good life out of our reseals. That maybe with older pavements that won't happen, but if we can keep our pavement renewals up, we can probably still keep it this level of reseals. We've got to justify it because it's below what the government is expecting.
Yeah.
But they're expecting a lot more than just about 10%. But that's the high volume state highways. So
Yeah.
we do this ministerial expectation report every quarter, and I've sort of discussed that a wee bit, that, hey, this funding is probably not prudent for us. And the other thing is I want us to do, I think, 2.5% payment renewal. And if we can get 1.5% payment renewal, we probably do need that. But it sort of balances to what subsidy we can get. So in the past, the subsidy from NZTA has been the limiting factor in our spend, especially in payment renewal. We're lucky this year we're getting a bit more money, so I think that the focus will still be on sealing and payment renewal. And then, but I think if for a couple of seasons we might struggle to fund bitumen. So it'll be interesting how that goes.
So roading's going to be one of your big ones when you go forward in your LTP. Once water's removed, you're going to see a big focus in this area. So at the end of this, just as a sum up, I've noted about more regular reporting, and I was thinking about the quarterly PM report when we come up to the workshops. Is that something, and poor Danny's not here at this stage, but it could be that we talk to Dan and then Rob and Steve come and just do a little bit of a report on what's happening in their area each quarter along with it. They won't be part of the performance measures, but it could be their opportunity to round up with some of those stats and info.
Yep.
And that's sort of
We have talked about having you guys here, or like being able to have regular catch ups.
So maybe that quarterly is a prompter, we'll do the performance reports and then they could come with their own reports specifically.
Just to keep us up to speed with what's happening in your departments.
Yep, okay. Pass that on to Stuart and he can have a chat with Dan, etc. Any more questions for Rob? Otherwise we can let him go. Please to disappear out the room. You all good?
Thank you. Thanks.
Cheers, Rob.
I'm going to suggest that we move straight to community facilities.
Yep.
So that we don't subject
Steve
Steve
to
here to 3 sets of
everything
performance
else.
measures that aren't his.
Always look stimulated.
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So there are a couple here, right at the start it talks about resident survey, positive perception of living in Waimate district. You got a target of 88, you reached 85. The national average is 73, so we're suggesting that you hold that target, unless you want to be a little bit more aspirational, but I think you're well and truly punching above your weight there.
Community facilities.
Oh, sorry, wrong one.
Yeah. Page 52.
Sorry. That's it, wrong one.
Satisfaction with camping.
Yeah, 52.
I'll be quiet, passing over. All right. Steve, all yours.
Okay, so the first one is resident survey satisfaction with public toilets, and that's not really our domain. It's an interesting process there. I think that would be shared between cleaning, water, and also and us. And I'm not
Probably for the facilities, it would be assets or property.
Yes, and I noticed that we do a lot of the repairs for some of the public toilets. We repair them. I wonder if that's a legacy issue from back in the day when Parks and Reserves used to actually do the cleaning in the toilets as well. So we do some of that, but we wouldn't be solely responsible for that.
My understanding is maintenance is again the asset department, but who within the asset department?
I'm
not
I think we share that load with people like water, if it's a burst main and such. Like for instance, we just bought brand new hand sanitisers for toilets. That we facilitated that and put it all in. So, but I'm not certain that that's particularly relevant to us.
So maybe then, Tina, for you, looking at this, we've got a national average of 56. You had a target of 70. We were up at 78. So again, you've had some really good reports back about your public toilets. Do you want to hold for now at 78? I
think I prefer this one to Dan.
Just for some context here, we are a top performer when it comes to public satisfaction with this. It constituted one of the largest rises in satisfaction in our 2025 community survey. And I think that is obviously the result of a lot of the toilet work that we did in the district. So just keeping that in context, 78% is the top performing council of all benchmarked councils. So
New toilets.
where you would like to keep that proposed target, just keep that in context.
So like best toilets in New Zealand.
Absolutely. Of all benchmark councils, yes.
All right, we'll talk to Dan, but we're suggesting a hold that target, but we'll let him come back.
All those pretty much just holding the lot makes sense to me.
Keep it simple.
Steve, do you want to talk
a couple
to
of comments on that? Parks and Reserves is very resident survey weighted, and as I've heard discussion around this table, public surveys they can swing or go either way. What I'd like to do is to suggest we add in some actually measurable performance measures for the things like the parks and some other things. They're achievable. I've got 4 of them. Some of them may be relevant. Just to shift that balance between the
Perception
challenge, because I think we'd accept that Parks and Reserves is a challenge to measure because we're dealing with an effect on the social environment or the public culture of a town, and that's very challenging to measure when you put it up against a pothole in the road or a burst water main. I mean, those things are seen, they can be fixed, you can time the length of time it takes to be fixed, but how can you measure whether or not the replanting of the winter plants up and down the main street in the last 3 weeks has had a positive effect on the community psyche? Very challenging to do that. You do it by resident survey, but I'm going to suggest just a couple more things that might just enhance that. You did right. We're running above the game for most of these. We're down a little bit on camping facilities, but again, that's a public survey, and that was done prior to the current husband and wife team that are at the lakes, and they have made such an incredible difference to the lakes in the last sort of season and a half. Just phenomenal, you know. I understand there's risk there, because if they upped and left tomorrow, we'd be struggling to replace that quality of team. However, if you did a resident survey today about the last season of the camps, I think you'd find it well over the 80% mark. So, but yes, again, we are above the percentile for a lot of these. What I'd like to do is to concentrate on two of those things on the camping facilities. There's two things that we do in those areas that we're already focused on doing. The first thing relates to the February of last year willow tree branch coming down and squashing the caravan at the lakes. Now that had a significant impact on council, and there's a lot of to and fro about whose fault and everything it was. As a result of that, we now do a high risk tree survey using an arborist of all the trees in the lakes area. The arborist walks around for a day and points to, as he can, willows. I can see the twist in that branch, let's take that willow off, and then we go up there in the off season and we take down various limbs. We've done a lot of work on all those limbs last year. And I'm wondering whether simply putting a measure in that there is one high risk tree survey completed every year is a relevant and measurable safety aspect for the lakes. And I know we can achieve that.
So we've got that sort of thing, Steve, with the likes of the oaks down the main street, haven't we?
Yes, we do.
So why would you not have it for that?
Yeah, and we're probably upping our game a little bit on that, and that's based on the fact that the winds are getting higher, the trees are getting older. I think my research on Waimate Park said, well, we've got 3,000 trees in there. Some of them were planted in 1874, you know, so we've got big, mature trees, and as I said this morning, they interlock their branches, they cause issues. We get an arborist in there and preempt, and we take off branches because the arborist is the expert and says this needs to go. Then we reduce the public risk, and it's achievable within budget. So one of my suggestions.
Nice easy one to add for the quarters. Yep.
Second one, sorry.
I've got that down as high risk tree survey undertaken annually.
Yes.
The target will be one survey done every year.
Yes.
Cool.
So you're doing that anyway, it's just a cost, I was thinking. So it's no additional cost, really.
It's no additional cost because we were being reactive, and now we're being proactive.
Yeah.
Just put the money in a different part of the year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The second one would be, we don't look at occupancy rates of our camping facilities. And I don't mean the camp themselves. I mean things like Victoria Park cabins, Tennant Street cabins, and Nottingham Park cabins. We don't look at the occupancy rate well enough for that. We simply let it go. And I'm wondering whether we should put something in that we look at a certain percentage of occupancy per year of the cabin facilities, or in a case of Victoria Park, the en-suites, and that will prompt us to raise our game and respond better to complaints, which will raise the occupancy a little bit lower. I don't know what percentage you put on that.
I can remember when those got the resolution to build it, it's actually in the resolution, I believe, that they must return, I think it was 8.5% per annum.
A percentage, of course.
Yeah. And if you have a look, because it was done by Peter McElwraith.
I was going to say, well done remembering that, Mr.
Yep.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. But I think if you look at the original resolution when those cabins were built, that there's a part of the resolution is they must return, I think it was about 8% per annum.
I'd like to do a bit more work on that, but I think if we used the 8% as a benchmark and we apply that to, potentially apply that to the other parts of the, that's the en-suites, I'm sure. But we've got Tennant Street cabins, we've got Nottingham Park as well.
We're talking
And
about
return
on investment there, aren't we?
We'll have to check the
You're talking occupancy rates here, aren't you?
Yeah, they're occupancy rates.
8 sounds high to me.
Well, that's the thing, and that may not be But that's what's in the resolution.
It was definitely an intent.
Yeah, and I think it was that percent.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
There was an identified target
No.
on that.
So what we could do, Steve, is to work on what a reasonable would be rate of return or occupancy, and just come back with a suggestion.
Yeah, I agree with you that it would be nice to have some firm figures around.
I was just going to ask, just through you, that with Steve, with are the occupancy figures already been collated?
Yes, they are. So we can, no, they're not
And the
specifically
auditable?
collated. Yeah, we would have to work that through the finances, but we can do it.
through your own department, and then you'll be accountable to audit. So that's so my reason for asking that is it going to be additional work for any staff, because that would be important to council before they agree to any additional performance measures, if they're going to incur staff time that's not really being invested.
But that would be my time, I think, as manager. I'd like to come back to you on that one, but my instinct tells me I could get that done. But that's my instinct. But perhaps you might have a side conversation around what that potentially would involve.
Probably one with Dan when you get feedback.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll put that down as further analysis required.
Yeah.
And that may be something that we are able to talk again about when a parks amp comes in front of council for workshop.
Yeah.
Steve, what was your third one?
The next one's the pool. Again, it would be about occupancy, or in this case, attendees. What I've noticed, I've just did a bit of a survey in the last couple of months, we've dropped attendees significantly in the last 5 years. And I do know, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, Tina, the ratepayer to income is about 90-10 in the pool. It's very high. It's very high rating for ratepayers, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and one of the reasons for that is our attendees have been dropping off steadily in the last 4 to 5 years, and I don't know why. So I want to put a bit of work into that. We're doing a survey this year. We'll do some conversations around the table with both the ex-pool staff and the current team, and try and figure that out. But that would be a clearly measurable process as well. Would be simple numbers of attendees, and we do capture those.
Yeah, again, I think we'd like to see some further analysis on that, because like we had a presentation from Ian McElwraith about the opening hours of the pool and that sort of thing. So has the opening hours changed over the last, what's changed? Is it just people not using it for the same hours or less hours? Is it,
Yeah, I'd agree. So if I can do some more analysis on that and potentially come up with a projected number, even if we were just raising it instead of, it's been falling off for the last 5 years. And just even if
we need to halt the fall at best and raise it, hopefully.
It's interesting because since 2021, public satisfaction with the pool has only increased, going from 62% in 2021 to 77% in 2025.
Yes, so no,
people didn't like it, stop going.
There's an interesting disconnect there between public satisfaction.
Yes, yeah.
Could tie it into climate change. It's not getting any hotter because pools use less.
Well,
But we've got new heating in the pool, so we're warmer than what we used to be.
Maybe that's not.
But then again, Steve, that's the sort of thing that'll be interesting in these regular catching up with council and council meetings, information that they can feed through.
could it be compliance costs pushing up the cost for council, because you're going to have so many staff on now, but because of those costs, the pool is not open as long, for as many hours, so that restricts who comes.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the percentage of cost per ratepayer was 5 years ago and what it is now, and then start working out how much that cost is attributed to additional compliance, additional staff, and that sort of thing, as opposed to a direct user up or down. Used to be used by a lot of the elderly, maybe they're dying off.
It's interesting.
But no, that's the thing. There's a lot. There was a lot of you know, those early morning swimmers used to be,
Aqua classes.
really,
Correct.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, it used to be on 20 odd between.
yeah,
sort of
the
6
school still regularly uses for their swim classes and.
Absolutely, and aquarobics is plus all the schools are regularly coming in, so I don't think that's dropped off. But I certainly think that I know.
General.
Yeah.
Ian did ask bail me up outside work the other day about
All hours.
the lack of progress.
So do we want to think about that as something that Steve could come and report outside of
Yeah,
this
just
information?
general
But then
information.
you're watching
Yeah.
as it's going along.
So we won't include that as a performance measure as of yet. We'll talk about it as further analysis being required.
Yeah.
We may revisit this when we move towards AMP development.
Yeah. Sounds good.
What was the fourth one, Steve? You had four?
Look, bearing in mind that I'm reasonably new at the role, I'm going to throw one out there that's a little bit strange. We measure dissatisfaction on a regular basis. That's what performance measures do. And yet, in parks and reserves, we get public accolades probably twice a week. And that is extremely high in comparison to others. They come through the main counter or people walk into there, like I get emails into us. I'm just wondering how we can capture that. And I appreciate it's like a mini public survey, but it's a clear indicator that someone has been walking down the main street, for example, seen the bucket baskets up there, looked down the street, thought, gosh, that's really nice, and had the gumption to say something about it. I think that's worth capturing, and I don't really know how we would do that unless I can just tell you in a report how many we've had and what their substance was.
And again, maybe that is something as part of your quarterly report that's just sort of saying, hey, this is the feedback we're getting at the moment.
So we are weighted towards.
I'm just mindful with the likes of audit that,
Yeah.
with the name, address and ID number, name, address and ID number of every person that, they can at least have that verified by 3 people. And,
I think the first one about the high-risk tree survey is a good one that you can put in there. And then those others, I think, are really good meaty things because there's some outcomes you want to achieve there, which could be part of that quarterly, where you're actually reporting back to elected members and just saying, hey, you're making progress in this area, we're getting this information. I don't know how you feel, but that sounds.
And your feedback can just be, rather than being the measurable thing, which runs into audit issues, can be anecdotally, this is some of the stuff that's been said.
Yeah, because that happens across other aspects of council too, like the libraries had some good ones too, and I'm sure there's other areas that get good and bad, and so it's nice to know those. Some I don't know whether they
lots of comments
get
about cemetery.
Yes.
Well, it's kept, how easy it is to find loved ones and things like that. But
people obviously like it there, they stay for it.
Yeah, stay for a while.
The comms did not like my people are dying to get into our cemetery.
Oh, they're not
when we won the green flag.
Not keen on that one.
They did not go forward with it.
That's all I've got.
Any further questions for Steve on the parks? Okay, and then very quickly, just on the rest of we've got community facilities meet legislative safety requirements. I think that's a gimme. Yes, they all have to do that. All council playgrounds are inspected by an external agency. That's once a year, Steve.
Apology, yes, one more. Okay, so that is done by an external place called PlaySafe. It's done every 2 years and it costs $7,500. And we have a trained person within Parks and Reserves team, Hamish McDonald, who's already trained on parks on server inspecting playgrounds. What I'd like to do is simply change the external to internal.
And every 2 years or every year?
No, to still be internal.
Internal.
And we'll drop that payment almost to negligible. I've talked to Hamish just a brief today. It will take around 2 days to do the whole lot. We'll spread that over a workload as we've been dependent. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Should pass this year, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Should pass this year with all the new stuff.
Absolutely. Well,
if we make that change on this measure, that means we must then always ensure that we have someone qualified to do that piece of work.
Correct.
Could we change to internal or external?
Sorry?
Could it be changed to internal or external? Something so you've got a piece of backup of Hamish Lee?
Just if there's a staff, I'm just thinking if there is a staff change, we're still gonna be,
Yeah.
if we say it's internal, then we
With
must
a
always have
qualified
someone
person or
qualified.
something rather than
I think
specifying.
just go into
Qualified.
internal
Yeah.
or external.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as an aside, the original plan, so Hamish is telling me, was for him to get qualified and then hire him out to other facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, we agree with that too.
It sounds good.
For the card.
So the wording on that.
Particularly on the road.
All council playgrounds are inspected by an internal or external safety inspector.
Every second year.
Yeah. Every second year.
Okay, and then we've got maintain pool safe accreditation, that's a gimme as well.
That's a gimme because I'm sure you're all aware pool safe is the industry standard. There is no industry standard for pools. So whenever there's a death, the climate always refers to pool safes parameters to test whatever has happened at some sort of pool. So they are by default industry standard. So following their guidelines and getting an accolade from them or getting a certificate from them is just a no-brainer.
And the last one there was the occupancy rate of the 27 community housing
Hold
units.
it,
I think
100%.
hold there,
Yep.
100% all the time, and we've got changeover doesn't work, so that's, yep, okay.
Yep.
All right, we can let Steve go, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, ladies and
Steve,
Thank you,
thank
Steve.
Thanks very much.
And we've got Dylan in the seat.
District planning and regulatory.
There we go.
Let's talk about lies, damn lies and statistics, shall we?
Slightly more positive.
Well, I've got an economics,
Slightly
I've got a major in economics, so that's how I view them. And I might explain that in a minute, but let's quickly go through them because the first five are all statutory measures, so 100% is it's not going to be changed. We can't change it. In relation to the first one, though, the district plan and bylaws were kept 100% reviewed and adopted within statutory timeframe. However, the statutory timeframe rolls out with RMA changes, etc. Because we're not talking about district plan anymore. We won't be. It's land use plan and spatial plan.
Yeah.
So I think it still hits that. Moving down to food hygiene and late night party noise and environmental complaints. Again, set at 100%. I don't see any reason why we need to change that. Most of the time we hit it. Resource consents, compliance with resource consents, greater or equal to 40 consents monitored annually. I'd like to hold that target because this is the first year of measuring it. We're probably going to hit it, probably going to exceed it, but there's no point changing it until we have some sort of trend or understand actually how.
So the number of net consents is not changing dramatically?
Well, this is just compliance. This is sending Gareth out to check that consents are being.
I see he's got to monitor 40 consents.
Yep.
What I'm saying throughout the district, so we have the consents gone from 50 to 200, and that, which would require more monitoring, obviously.
Well, if you wanted to monitor all of them, you'd need to invest significantly in staff.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that.
So
All I'm asking, has there been a large increase in the consents?
Well, it would vary.
Is 40 still a suitable number?
40 is still a suitable number.
Cool, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Coming down to animal management, so just gone up, down to animal management, I think the whole targets for that. And then down to the last two, which is the user satisfaction with the building consent process and resource consent process. So just correct me, Shay, this is the resident survey results.
They were previously an internal survey.
Yeah.
And we are moving, we moved them to user satisfaction.
Yeah, so I have difficulty with this because if you remember, the resident survey was 5,000 people, 439 people responded. It's about 10%. About 10% of that, which is 1%, actually answered this question. Because how many people in this room, for example, have actually gone through the building consent process in the last 6 months?
6 months.
So if you think about that on a grander scale, it's hardly anybody answering this question.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is my lies, damn lies and statistics point,
Yeah.
is that sometimes the percentage is not actually
We
accurate.
have talked in the past about having an ability when a consent is completed for someone to fill out a questionnaire, which to me would be a lot more accurate.
Yes, and we used to do that as part of the internal survey, or part of another survey, and nobody returned it, because particularly with building, there's a small number of builders that operate in our district, and if you can't keep hitting them with the same survey, they get sick of answering.
Yeah, it's often not the
They don't answer.
landowners that are,
No.
like, it's not necessarily the ratepayer that's dealing with the consenting process. Yeah.
So again, it's not a great measure.
Is this one a mandatory?
No, these bottom two are not. You
So-
can scrap.
And it's not benchmarked either, so we
Yeah.
don't have any, we can't even compare ourselves against others.
Yeah, and like the other resident survey, it is very much influenced by what's happening in the greater environment. So at the time this was asked, government was going on about building consent reform and how poorly the building consent process operates in New Zealand, and all these changes need to be made.
For us.
Well, the questions actually talk about the building consent process, not about our service.
Yeah.
So again,
So can we leave
what are we
you,
trying to
so
measure?
can we leave you to come up with a suitable measure?
Maybe.
Is there something you want to change, or are you?
There is, I think the
both
question's
go?
wrong.
But the other thing is, do we just can it because we're mindful of the change in regulations, and a lot of that might be centralised anyway.
Might be redundant. And also the sample size is so small,
Yeah, it just can't
I
be
have no
consistent.
confidence in
I
what
agree.
these results are.
Just remove it.
So
Take it off.
As part of running your department and complying with legislation and stuff, how does like government measure your performance? Like, do they measure how long building consents take to go through and resource consents? So there are alternate measures already in place.
Oh yes, we're subject to
Outside
audit.
of the satisfaction, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, so it's like, are we already measuring this in a different, more tangible way?
Yes.
So the bit that we're not getting is how happy our community are with those services. If we take this out.
Yeah, we have envy, for example,
It's
we
such a
report of
trend.
the BCA every year, extraordinary cost, and go through every single little I and T.
And that is reported back. So maybe the measure here instead is the per annum MB, and that it passes.
Yeah, it's a much better measure.
Because that's quite important. You've either got that
I think
accreditation
it might already be.
or you haven't.
I think it might already be.
Or, like, for me, it's like, I mean, we want our district to be happy with the services that we provide.
You've got an economic driver that you want to make sure that people are coming here, and is the service easy and people are fine. You don't want any impediments into people coming here and building, so with your accreditation.
I still think the question's important.
Yeah, it's just
But
finding the
obviously the
right
way
way to
that
pose
we're
it.
measuring it is not the way it should be. Because to
Yeah.
me, it's very important that we
If
are
it's
aware
statistically-
that people are happy with the likes of Stuart,
Very
Miller
important.
and his team, and because this directly influences what we've been speaking about encouraging people to come and live and build within our district. And we know that from previous experience, a bad building inspector can have a real negative effect on our district. And that sort of thing, or a bad process can have a negative effect on a district.
Yeah.
So,
it's
I think
like,
the
how do we
questions, I
measure
think
it
the
better?
question's important. How we get to the answer, I'm open to suggestions, ideas, out of the box thinking.
Would it be
Because I know if we just go, oh, let's just get rid of it, people are going to say, oh, this didn't like the measures, they just got rid of it.
Would it be a step in the right direction to perhaps say, look, here we are surveying all this tiny sample? Would it be somewhat intuitive to only speak to the people who have used the process and used the system?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at with that question about the LTP, getting out to those builders, like what can we do better, or what are they not happy with, or what are they happy with? How do we connect with them and find out what they think?
Really, these questions are part of this resident survey, so
Yeah,
they
exactly.
don't necessarily come from us.
It's not
I'm
that
not
they're
sure what
not
the
valid,
alternative
it's
questions
just
might
whether
be.
they
Those
belong.
last-
This is not part of, this is not benchmarked in the resident survey.
It's not.
It's not,
It
okay.
does, the question does have a conditionality that the person answers, they have used the service
Yeah,
in the past 2 years, so it does filter out.
Like
just
realistically, I'd rather
informed
see
perception.
Dylan his department contacting each year 6 out of the local 10 builders and getting some feedback from them as to or somebody independent or something. That's more meaningful to me.
Yeah.
Because those are the guys that are using the service all the time, the likes of the, our local builders and that sort of thing. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm just borrowing some things out there that
We don't have to lock anything in today.
No.
We can walk away with the understanding
I
that
think rather than just putting a line through it saying let's get rid of it, because I think the question's important with how satisfied are you, but we need to look at a better way of gathering the information to get an accurate read on the true picture that's out there. It's not, as Dylan said, 1% of 1% that's going to give us a number that tells us we're 36% worse off than we were.
I mean, the question itself, where it says provide quality customer services that meet the expectations of the community, well, it's not there to meet their expectations.
No, to meet the legislative
It's there to meet
requirements,
the
really.
legislative requirements. So it's an unusual framing of a question.
Yeah. So it needs some work.
So let's walk away. We'll talk about this. Nicole and I will look at other LTPs and see.
There we go.
Dylan can talk to his equivalents at other councils, and we'll come back with something that tries to fill those.
That'd be good. Thank you.
Sorry, just in closing, there is a line that's missing from that table you're looking at in relation to accreditation.
Yeah.
For performance measures, and so that question is asked.
Yeah, it is.
It is here.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's missing.
I think it was removed.
It's in the next question problem. The survey that's going around now with staff still includes it.
Yeah, we have it internally, but it's not a
measurable audit.
It's not one that we send to audit.
Right, okay.
But that's all right, we can bring it in if you want. Okay, we'll talk to you, we'll come back with some suggestions around that. Yep. Organisation and governance, so this one flip-flops around the room a wee bit here. So we've got the resident survey. Residents are satisfied with performance of elected members. This one we throw at you. Your benchmark national average is 39%. Your results are 55, but you did set yourself a target of 75. Where do you want to sit with this?
100%.
Go to the top.
I think the 75% is a good
ballpark,
good target. But I mean,
is it achievable though?
Is it? Well, but it's a target. Targets are something that you're supposed to be aiming for and shooting for, not something that you know you can get.
Yeah, but a target needs to be achievable.
It needs to be achievable for it to be.
But it's subjective too, isn't it?
It is very subjective.
It's very subjective.
But I think pulling this down from 75% is a bad look.
Some context. Let me give you a little bit of context about what's going on nationally. National average is 39%. Your average is 55. You are a top performer.
Yeah, true.
Of all benchmarked councils.
Yeah.
So
it's not a great look.
55 is the cap.
But it's like rating.
Of the last 3 community surveys, in 2021 it was 59%, at 2023 it was 55%, and then you held steady. In that same time, the national average has dropped 8%. So you have weathered that far better than the average council.
You don't want to be seen though to be pulling yourself down towards everybody else.
Let's stay with
we're trying to get away from aspirational targets. If you're going to sit here and say we're going to work towards,
I think we are. We're trying to do more community things, more community.
If you pulled it back to say 60, that's above. We've never done that in the last 3. You know, it puts a bit of pressure on us, but it's achievable.
And 60 is still over 30% higher than what the national average is. So it's still aspirational.
I think this is the one that we don't shift to what we've already achieved. It's just a shit look.
But that's where if you go to 60, I don't want to just fail a heap of targets because we're actually not being realistic.
I agree.
What's the point of measuring something that's not actually achievable?
It is achievable. Why isn't it achievable?
60%.
Human nature.
I know that.
So this is a perception question. There are performance measures further down that do talk about activities that council members are taking to engage with the community. It will likely be, here's what we're doing to increase that number.
Yeah.
So you may be a little more easy on yourself in the first one, but say we've ramped up activities to try and bring up public perception.
And if we're still aiming, like if we say 60, because was sitting around the same as Sandy, we're still aiming to improve where we are and build a better thing. And that is still over 30% higher than the national average. So we're not aiming to underachieve. It's still aspirational to get it to 60.
Yeah, but everyone else lives outside of Waimate, so their average
Yeah.
would be way lower than ours anyway. It's a great place to live.
Yeah.
And why should we care what's happening in other districts? We should be looking at what we want to achieve.
And this is something as a group,
So how are you going to do it?
yeah, when you
And
sit
what are
around.
you going to invest in it to make it happen to get to
Just keep
75?
trying to do the best we can and target people who like us.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, but you can't spend more money.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
So I just don't think 75% is ever achievable.
But what money are we spending now on
55%.
5%.
on people being happy with us?
With your performance.
Let's just do 60, that's
Yeah,
a
thank
good
you.
number.
So our
That's still taking it down from what it is. and
You have to spend
that's
6%
perception
on
of it.
coffee.
I don't think that's a good look.
Well, it may not be a good look, Rick, but you're never going to get 75. It's aspirational. You know, it's just
You
what
will
it
if you don't put the rates up.
Yeah.
Very helpful. So, for the rate increase, your
There we go.
performance.
So now we know what we're gonna do.
No,
So
go.
it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because you would say, we don't think that 60 is an appropriate level to set it at, but when you set it at 75 and constantly underperform,
Yeah.
you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, maybe you go to
Where would
60.
would you rather kind of meet in the middle and say, well, at least we're not too far away from our target, or would you rather it set at 75 and always be 40 points under?
We're not 40.
How about you split it when
It's
to
one of the biggest gaps.
65?
It's one of the larger gaps.
I know.
Well, I'm thinking, like, if we set it at 60, in 3 years' time, we can set it at 65. Like, it doesn't have to be fixed forever at that amount.
No.
But it's like, let's aim for something that is an achievable improvement.
Do we go to 65?
Or
This is,
could you have it so that is an increase year on year? Rather than aiming for a fixed percentage. So if it was 55 last time, that next time
It's better.
it's
60.
improved.
Can we put it at an increase?
No, you don't put a figure on it, you just say that it's.
You've got to put a number on it.
Yeah.
Or it's,
I suggest that you aim for, I know you, I think it continues the story from 55% to 60. If you go above that and you target some of your communications, your connection with the community, the way that you have conversations with them, your visibility, etc., and it starts to go above that, then certainly when we get to the each annual plan, we can look at where you're sitting and are you achieving, or you can aim for 65. It is aspiration, not as aspirational as 75, but it's not that far off your number. What is it you feel as a group you're going to do over that 3 years of this next LTP? The perception of your community is going to be high of you. That's your challenge.
I think that goes to exposure. Like, it'd be really nice if we could come back in 2 years and say 80% of this community know a counsellor to speak to.
Yeah, and that's
It's
a big
just
thing.
exposure, and that will lift that number.
Yeah.
Couldn't miss.
Because I had that just the other day, somebody said, oh, we never see our counsellors, we wouldn't know who they were, and I'm like, well, we never meet with anybody, and I said, well, meetings have been there, have you turned up? No, didn't know about them. I'm like, well,
So, I mean, those are the challenges for yourself. So when you set this number, you don't have to go 60, 65, or you could actually go 62 or 63. You know, you can go in between there and give yourself a little bit more of a stretch of 5, maybe go to 7 or 8% stretch. I wouldn't advise 65.
What was the percentage of the vote? How many people voted? Like 40, what was our voter turnout? 43%?
Yeah, 43 or 44%.
There we go, that's the percentage, because that's how many people voted, and that's.
Yeah, that's all the ones that matter.
Also the ones that do the survey though.
Yeah. So
I'm joking about that.
That should be the first question.
Just joking.
There's a 60, 62, 63 or a 65. Where do you feel comfortable, the effort and the energy you're going to put in over the next few years, especially the first 2 years of this LTP?
Yeah,
In
it's
2
a
years'
3-year
time.
goal, you'll only measure it in 2027 before you have to redo the LTP again.
65.
Yeah, 65.
65?
Yep.
We all comfortable? You can revisit this in a little while. It doesn't have to be locked in right now.
Because the other thing too is that depending on the changes in the future with the legislation and round 3 waters, if we get our our wood entity up and running properly and delivering what we hope it will deliver and that sort of thing, I think you will see that number lift. And that
I
if
mean,
we
I
get a change in
definitely want
government,
it
a
to be
completely different
stretched.
change in direction, and it'll get blown out the bottom. It's so hard to.
It's an immensely complicated measure because there are so many inputs into it.
But I do think this is probably the only one that really justifies an aspirational target.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're live streaming all of our activities now.
Exactly.
We're likely going to get more exposure through that. We've put a lot of effort into comms and increasing communications. You're likely going to benefit from that.
We're starting our coffee mornings this week, so next week.
So again, there's a lot of inputs into this.
65, yep. And then we can review it over the next month or two when we start to bring these back. If you feel, no, you know what, changed our mind, then you can adjust it.
Correct.
Ordinary council meetings are live streamed and recordings are made available to public. We've got 100% live stream. Tina, are you comfortable that stays? You've got nothing to add to that? Yep. Compliance with Local Government Act, planning, accountability and regulatory requirements, 100% of audit opinions are unmodified.
Good. On the target,
Good. Response time to Local Government Official Information and Meeting Act, we've got 100% responded to within statutory timeframe.
on the target.
Yep. Resident survey, resident satisfaction with sufficiency of the information supplied by council. So we didn't have a national average. You set it at 75, it came in at 53. We've got a possible adjustment to 60. Again, this is something you can discuss. Michelle's here in the room, or this is information going out via us from you.
60 is an improvement.
Comfortable with 60?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to give my apologies as well.
Yeah, no, because it's got to
That's right, we're just about there.
Yeah.
Number of community engagement meetings offered by elected members. So we've got a target of over 10. Your result was 3, but obviously by the sounds of things, you're starting to plug in more things. Are you comfortable to keep that at 10 and over?
The only thing I'd say is, like, the coffee mornings are great, but basically that caters for the urban. It's just, because I think we do need to try more with the rural ones. I know they don't turn up, but we're still going to try.
But the other thing too is that maybe, what are we there?
Is it 10 per month or per year?
I think rather than just engagement meetings, the likes of, you're doing a newsletter now. To me, that's engagement. So maybe it's rather than engagement meetings, it's engagement opportunities or something like that. Because the likes of you guys are doing a newsletter. We're going to do a coffee. We're doing a coffee morning in town. You're going to have. You'll easily tick that 10 off in the next 12 months with the amount of meetings that are going to be required for around the water and things like that. You know, how many meetings have we had already with the chairs of the water committees and that sort of thing?
But does that meet the definition? Because it's quite.
Why does it not? They're part of the community. Or are you talking about an open? This is the thing. It's another one of these measures that's a bit sort of vague.
That's our own doing, though.
Oh, it is our own doing. Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe we need to. So maybe we
clarity.
Maybe exactly. We need to clarify.
Is it like 10 face-to-face meetings? How do we measure it? Is that for one councillor, or is it for the whole of council?
Do you want to link it to that first big conversation you had around satisfaction? Is there something then that you can physically say that you did, instead of it being your normal day-to-day business, is there things that you can do outside of that where you deliberately put a pop-up at the market and you do that different type of public offering and connection?
What it was intended.
Yeah.
If you-
The best of my recollection, it was intended to be open to the community,
Yes,
so anybody could come rather than, or you could be in any location for the community to join
So
in
that
on
is
the
our
conversation,
properties.
but it would be primarily led by elected members.
Can we
So
move
it
from the
wasn't
word
a
meeting to
council
the,
staff kind of event that elected members
Engagement
get along with.
opportunities.
Yeah, engagement.
The other way
just
around.
move from meeting to maybe event? Just take the word meeting out of it. People have a connotation of the word meeting.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
It's
So,
orderly, it's structured.
yeah,
Maybe that's not what we're looking for here.
engagement opportunities, yeah, I think engagement opportunities is better.
The event sounds like something major.
Meeting sounds like a drag.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Number of engagement opportunities.
Yeah.
And they're not structured, organised by staff. They,
They're elected member initiated.
Assistance with organising, but not,
The coffee shop.
not
Yeah,
attended by.
Yeah.
And I agree, Sandy, with the rural, and I think it's up to us urban councillors to actually support the rural councillors if they're having a community event or something like that, that we can also be available.
But there's nothing more embarrassing than having more councillors than people.
Yeah.
And that-
But you're still giving them the opportunity.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
And I haven't got an answer.
No, no one has. We've tried all different sorts of things to,
I think it's go to where the people are, so it's identify what.
yes, it is, yeah,
might be
it is, yeah.
For a particular
Field days.
purpose and.
The come to council, listen to us talk does not work.
No.
It's and we've spoken about this,
We talked about the market.
about the market.
Yeah.
And maybe we do it once every couple of months down, stall down at the market. And that, just to cheer the fact people and that sort of thing.
I think it's a good
when your
idea.
LTP consultation comes up, you're going to find ways, you will then be connected with the community to talk to them about various things. There will be initiatives led by you, so it's just continuing with some of that conversation.
And there's probably good to do that before the market.
So those LTP consultation meetings are additional to these.
So, well, yes,
no.
Yeah, these are,
Some more.
these are,
Become accessible.
we initiate these, not as part of the formal process.
It's your
But it's a bit like the water thing, you know, they don't really count.
So you brought up at one of the meetings, and I'm not saying we'll do anything with this, and I had a chat with Tina about this, and I think it might have been at the audit and risk, you talked about finance measures. Now, you don't have anything specific, but then you do have every couple of months, every quarter, quite a detailed finance paper. So I'm not suggesting you add any more measures into this as finance measures, but maybe if there's something specific around that finances that you maybe give some guidance with Stuart or have that conversation, and is there something more about finances? I can't remember what it was specific to, but it was a comment from around the table. Just ignore it if it might have, I heard something, but I just wasn't sure what it was.
I think it was just more about giving the ratepayers a better understanding of where and how their rates were spent.
Yeah. Right.
And that, you know, breakdowns of activities and, you know, your rates went here.
So
I think
maybe that's
it's
better.
pretty much already
Sounds
there.
like a comment around communication.
Yes, it is, yes, yeah.
Instead of
Of
that.
the financial.
Yeah.
Okay.
As
Yeah.
opposed to performance.
Yep, right.
Yeah, rather than something formal, it was more a Facebook comment about,
Yeah.
you know,
Did you know
that we spent X amount of dollars on refuse and rubbish collection out of a total rate pool of X millions of dollars. This is what we spend on rates and rubbish, on rubbish collection and disposal and that sort of thing. This is about how much we spend on the roading activity. Did you know it costs this much to remove a car out of a dump vehicle out of and that every time someone vandalises our toilets.
In the past, we've done it around the annual plan coming into effect. So from the 1st of July, that's when we say, you know, this is what $100 of your rates goes to, and we break it all down.
Which is good.
I think that's where it's quite good, because things like what the civic amenity rate covers. And like kind of for this bit here, you get all of this.
What's an SUIP?
Yeah.
All requires time and it's.
And it does, and that's the thing,
Yeah.
is because every one of these has to go through Michelle and the communications group and out.
Yes, and it certainly impacts a number of people.
You could just let us do it, we'd take care of it.
Just very nervous.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You went a bit pale there.
I can say she went down about 3 colours there.
All right.
Sandy says.
Made on financial measures, you're already, we're reporting in a number of ways about how compliance with policies that you've already got in place, so. Please, you're not suggesting there's nothing additional added here because I don't think it'll actually add a heck of a lot of value. You know, we report on our obligations to the local government funding agency, you know, to fulfil all of those kind of things. So there's a number of measures that happen. There's a number of things in the annual report already, and the benchmarking. So that section of that which is legislatively required. So yeah, there's already a lot happening in that space. Good outcome.
All right.
Lucky last, community services, we'll rip through this one. So it's got resident survey, positive perception of living in the Waimate district, here to target of 88, we've reached 85. Benchmark national average is 73, so we're suggesting hold that at 88, it's a little bit aspirational, and again it's the perception at the time of what it's like to live here. Provide up-to-date economic data to local businesses, keeping infometrics data publicly available. We can keep doing that. Shay and I have got those connections. We're comfortable that we keep feeding that through, and that's information that can keep going out on our. Yep.
Can I just ask a question? What's the definition of a business? Like, so who is the information being shared with?
I don't know. Look, I'm sorry, because that or performance measure was put in way before I was here. So has anybody got any?
Does anyone use it?
Does anyone receive it?
How do we know?
Does anybody see it?
Yeah.
And the answer will be no. So we have subscribed to Infometrics and we can get that data. And Shay and I were talking about this last week because I think I asked the same question. And while we have this subscription, it's actually not available on the website.
So we can't just log in, like I couldn't from work log in and see how things are.
You can go to the Infometrics website and get the Waimate profile.
Yeah.
We make sure that information is publicly available, but we're not advertising it on our own website.
Yes.
And that's where we think we could be doing better.
Yeah. Because it is just around how is it used and who accesses it.
So essentially it would be a link to the Infometrics website.
And
for a ratepayer. Or for
anyone.
Yeah.
For anybody,
For anyone.
anyone,
Yep.
yes,
No,
it's
it's good.
public information.
So there's other
Because we talked
protection
about, we talked about whether we actually have graphs available on the web page, but then that requires us to constantly update.
Linking.
Links are good.
So we decided we'd do that.
Yeah, because if you go to them, you always got the latest data.
That's right.
There's another one that through NZTA that you can monitor all the district council's rating activities and spends and performance as well. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I have got it written
There's a
down.
screenshot of that at some stage.
So we could set those links up once on our website.
Yes.
And then they're there and then just promote it.
Yeah, okay, we can do that. So when we say provide up-to-date economic data, we won't say to local businesses, we'll just actually say to the WDC website.
And just say via. I just feel like I don't feel like saying provide up-to-date economic data is descriptive enough because that is a very broad.
Provide access to.
Provide access to.
Like I don't
access
want
to
them
economic
think
data.
that any of our staff are going to be giving them the information.
It should be available to everybody, not just businesses.
So provide access to economic data.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Okay.
The Waimate district economic data.
Yes.
WDC.
Otherwise somebody will say, I couldn't see the Iranian economic data.
Next one was resident survey, user satisfaction with library services. Now, as we said the last time, the number was down at 73 because of that change. Now, we've said hold at 81 or I'm comfortable that we stretch that a little bit to 85. The benchmarked national average is 80, and a lot of our comparisons benchmark have all had new libraries as well. So libraries up and down the country have had a significant jump in what people expect to get from them. So I'm comfortable to up that a little bit to 85 or
Yep.
hold it at
Yep.
85.
See with all the work we've done there.
Now we've got number of visitors to explore Waimate website.
Remove it. Oh,
You just made a friend of Michelle then. That was like, yo.
Well, we don't control it anymore, do we?
We still
Yes,
own it.
we own it.
Yeah.
But
we still want to
Yeah,
see.
but what I'm saying is we don't control that. You know, we have very little input into that now. That's their baby, and that's, I have no issue, that's fine. But so why would we have a measure?
I think we should, because their goal should be to
keep the numbers up.
To target visitors to their site.
So we've
So that should be, we shouldn't have the number of visitors, we should monitor the number of visitors.
Yeah.
And that rather than, that makes it sound as though we need to drive the number of visitors to that website, that's not our role anymore.
Well, we could do that through the agreement that I have.
Yeah.
You didn't achieve the target we set.
So we'll have
access to
monitor
it.
number of visitors to explore
Yeah, I've got
the
access to
website.
the
Yeah.
You set it at 30, you achieved 41. Now you appear to be averaging about 10 to 12, which means you're going to get to 40 or over. So we've got increased to 40, which is your benchmark, or do you want to nudge that a little bit higher, Michelle, and take some kind of guidance from you, really?
I know 40 sounds good.
Yep.
Yep.
40, happy with that?
Yeah.
Exhibitions at the library, sorry.
You're going to hurt it though, aren't you?
Yeah,
gotta hit it.
we could.
45?
I was going to say 50.
50? It's up to you, your call. Go.
45.
45. Yeah, okay. Exhibitions at the library. So you had 6, we reached 6. Now they've counted what they do a little bit differently, hence that number is quite high at 121. We're doing an awful lot of extra stuff in the library. So again, it's what do we really think about as exhibitions, or
What is an
Isn't-
exhibition though?
I was going to say.
exactly. So I don't think exhibition is the
It's not
right
the right,
word.
it's not, no.
Is it like a theme, is it, or?
So for instance, they've got regularly now, we have macrame, Lego,
Activities.
Activities,
poetry,
yeah.
readings, we've got
Activities,
lots of
that's
one-off activities and lots of regulars. There's reading at 11 o'clock with Super Grand, then we've got the
Yeah.
saloon that, so there's all sorts of new activities that are now happening
To
inside
change
the library.
exhibition to activities.
Activities,
and
Or programs?
Yeah.
Like that.
Activities and displays or programs.
Yeah, you've got here public engagement activities.
and
So for the
better be 250 at least.
quarter 2 results.
Yeah.
they need to be
No, leave it at
increases
6.
Because it's not going to withstand audit.
No, it's not.
Financial year.
exactly. So I've got to go back to,
Changing your definition for
Yeah.
current performance measure.
exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what we're going to do for the new one is recommend a target of over 100, which means activities and programs over the year, which means 365 days,
That's
we're close
long.
for a lot of them.
That's 2 a week.
So, are you talking about
Or do you want to hone in on something quite
not
specific?
individual?
Interactions.
Yeah, so you might do Lego, but you might do that 6 times a year. Are you counting 6, or
Yes.
are you just counting Lego as one because it's one program?
They're counting 6.
Each time.
So
Yeah.
actually each program that we put in is a singular, not how many times we do it.
Yeah.
So this obviously needs discussed with the staff in the library.
Yeah.
To get this.
So I'll
really
come back to
right.
you on that one because
We don't wanna,
I couldn't actually quite, an exhibition to me is something particularly you put up and,
Yeah.
you go in and
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
your
an
art.
exhibition.
And
So I
That's-
think if they're doing, like Lego should be counted as one activity, not how many times a week you're doing it.
Yeah.
Same as Super Grand, that should be like this.
Yeah, that's one
It's in every
program.
week.
Yeah.
Lego's one
That
program.
holds, yeah.
Yeah, rather than every single time you're doing it, because that's,
So we call them public engagement programs.
yeah.
Activity would be the individual events happening.
Yeah, okay.
Program would be something that runs
All
over the
encompassing,
year.
yeah.
But if it goes over into the next year, do you count it again?
Yes.
Well, per year.
Yeah, it's yearly and activity.
I think effectively what we're doing is replacing the focus on art exhibitions or displays to, so we're almost going to take this measure out from 27 and replace it with the public activities.
And
Programs.
Yeah.
I think the beauty of this is it shows that libraries are more than just pockets.
They are, definitely.
All these different programs, activities
And then the last one, that last couple, we've got civil defence. So we've got an annual group exercise. Feeling comfortable, we stick with that with the one. And then we've got civil defence emergency management personnel within the EOC offering training. So we had 6 training opportunities per year. We had a result of 23. There were 4 in one quarter, 3 in the next.
This is not all of council training sessions, are
No.
Whatever this be, basic and very hard to do. So it can be one-on-one, it can be small function groups, it can be.
So we're comfortable with sticking with the 6 training, 1 a month?
No.
I think we said 12.
12 training opportunities per year.
Yep, 12.
So we have team to explain, suggest alternative measure or target. So
12.
Who's the team?
1 month.
Dylan's the team.
We have a full-time civil defence person now, so as well. So.
We expect you to train yourself 10 times a year.
All right. That concludes, you'll be pleased to know, our performance measures. And that brings us to the end of the workshop today. And the takeaways for this workshop that we're going to start to think about key consultation items that you might propose for the upcoming LTP. And they'll be linked to services, responsibilities, sources of funding. You'll start to get a feel as we bring the budgets back. And then we'll be looking at what assumptions and risks we might develop, change over the next 12 months. So again, that is something in September to October that we'll be starting to think about. And then in another month's time, we'll be coming to you with workshop 3, where we will be starting to look at the next tranche of things within your workbook.
Can I ask a question, because we see it often referenced in all of our council documents and also in our planning. Can we just do a wee piece of work around learning about the significant and engagement?
That's coming. That's the next workshop.
Because that is something the public will see us make a decision, or they'll read the agendas and go, they've said that's not significant and this is really important, without understanding how it fits in that framework. And I'm a bit out of touch with what our triggers are for that policy.
So that will actually come up in the next workshop. That's another big meaty policy that really guides a lot of your decision making. How do you actually decide to consult with the public, or whether you don't feel you need to consult, and so what we hold on it.
Exactly.
Government
it would be really good to understand it.
So what we've done the vision and the outcomes. We've got those sort of pegged. We've got the council activities, and now actually we've done the performance measures. So we've made significant progress into starting to build your LTP. That's given the team some really good focus on how you're going to go away and come back and interpret those budgets and come back and think about what we're going to deliver. A lot of business as usual, a few things on the horizon, always taking away this, not to be too full on, we're steady as she goes, and thinking about where that rating number is going to land. So that'll come through after this next workshop. It'll be a little bit more educational, significance, engagement, a few other things. We will come back in July after that with a little bit of an update, because there'll be a gap whilst we concentrate on the annual plan and annual report. And then come September, the full focus is going to be right on the LTP, and it'll get really busy at that point. If at any time, especially those new to council, if you feel you're not understanding anything here, please reach out, any of us on the leadership team or with Stuart, or if you want more information, you want to dig down a bit more, you want a one-on-one with us to go over any of this, just sing out. That's what we're here to do. Please don't feel like oh gosh, I've gone away, I've got no idea what that means. Please sing out. We really don't mind helping, because the more you know, the more you understand, the more you know how this works, actually the better outcome the public are going to get from how you develop this LTP.
That's good. These initial workshops are all about the hand holding to make sure that when you get down to the end and we have to make decisions and we're on a time frame, you know what you're working with, you know what you're deciding, and you have an idea of what you've thought about for the past 8 months and what goes into that decision.
Yeah.
These are puzzle pieces.
Right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully it's all still spinning around in your head.
I'm just going to close off the live stream. If you could just give it 30 seconds, please, as well.
Your hand in the cup.
Live stream.